In addition to adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Act, electronic notice of this remote public meeting as is permitted under New Jersey Statute 1049.3 was also placed on the City of Newark website. Members of the public can make public comments by audio or by audio and video as permitted by the Zoom electronic communication platform. Now, while in this Zoom meeting, press on raise hand on the bottom left corner of the computer screen or mobile device. Raise hand allows participants to notify the host that they would like to speak without interrupting them. If you are calling in, press *9 on your telephone to raise your hand. The Central Planning Board will be mindful of the number of items on the agenda, and we will move as expeditiously as possible to complete the agenda. However, due to the amount of development requiring board review and the complexity of projects, it may not be possible to complete every item before by 11 p.m. In the event that the agenda is not complete by 11 p.m. tonight, the board will finish but and again, there is no additional applications to call. So the meeting of the Central Planning Board will now come to order. Secretary, roll call, please.
Commissioner Jordan?
Here.
Commissioner Baez? Commissioner Baez?
Present.
Commissioner Purdy? We have, oh, let me bring him in. I'm sorry. I'll come back to him. Commissioner Timmons?
Present.
Commissioner Scott Roundtree? We have his absent. Commissioner De Silva?
Here.
Commissioner James?
Here.
Commissioner Austin?
Here.
Commissioner Purdy?
Present.
Chair Richardson, are we on here?
Here.
Madam Chair,
Here.
we have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Excellent. If the applicants are available, please raise your hand so that the secretary can bring you in.
Madam Chair, we have Ms. Carrillo Perez coming in as the attorney for the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I see Mr. Higgins, Philip Scott, Madam Secretary Alexander Mayorga.
Okay.
I don't, and I think John McDonough. So
Yes.
Philip Scott. Yep. We have Mr. Higgins, Mr. Mayorga, and Mr. McDonough. I think that's it. I'm not sure who the other.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Okay.
So, I mean, Matt, we do have a representative here, but I don't think we'll leave it as is for now, if that's okay.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, you may proceed.
Good evening, everyone. Jennifer Carrillo Perez of Connell Foley on behalf of Iberia 2 Realty Urban Renewal LLC on application CPB 24-101 as it relates to the proposed development at 450-466 Market Street and 31-39 Jefferson Street, which is also referred to as Block 175, Lots 1 and 80 on the official tax records of the City of Newark. I'd like to start by noting that notice of this application was published at least 10 days prior to this hearing in the local newspaper of record. Notice was also given to property owners within 200 feet of the property via certified mail with return receipt requested and regular mail. And signs were also posted with the meeting details on Market Street, Congress Street, and Jefferson Street, as is required by the City of Newark ordinances. We also did provide notice to the New Jersey State Planning Commission via certified mail, providing them not only the hearing details, but also copies of the application and the supplemental documents that went along with it. We provided your board secretary with an affidavit of notice providing proof of same, and therefore we believe jurisdiction lies properly before this board to proceed. And so unless I hear an objection from the board secretary or Mr. Becht, I'd like to just proceed.
You may go ahead.
Thank you. And so the project before you this evening, the applicant has filed an application via my office requesting preliminary and final site plan approval for the development of 4 high-rise mixed-use buildings comprised of 2 30-story towers and 2 26-story towers. The buildings will contain a total of 1,408 residential units that consist of 1,125 market rate units and 283 affordable units. This project will comply with on-site units for IZO. They will be located on the site, on the project site. The apartment units themselves are comprised of studios, 1s, 2s, and 3-bedroom units. This project will also contain approximately 18,000 square feet of retail commercial space. There will be amenity space for the tenants, both indoor and outdoor. And this project will also have 620 parking spaces, of which 150 spaces will be designated for public use. This property is located in the Newark Riverfront Redevelopment Plan area within the mixed-use 2 district, where high-rise multifamily dwellings and various retail uses are permitted. And as you will see from our presentation this evening, this application conforms to the requirements of that redevelopment plan. This application has no variances. There are, however, some design waivers that were identified that include shade trees, and we will work with the arborist. Those issues relate to sight lines to make sure that there's safety with respect to traffic. Excessive entrance illumination with respect to lighting, we will work to comply on that and eliminate that waiver. Excessive walkway illumination, we have noted that the city engineer does not object to the granting of this waiver as it provides additional lighting, which is a safety issue, and there certainly helps towards alleviating any issues there. The active ground floor requirements, and you will hear from our professionals with respect to that. There are 6 driveways to and from the subject site within Congress Street and Jefferson Street. Again, the city engineer does not object to the granting of this waiver, and an access aisle width of 22 feet within the parking garage. And again, the city engineer does not object to the granting of that waiver. And so as you can see, there are approximately 5 waivers that you will hear testimony on from our professionals, many of which have no objection from your city board professionals. Tonight, we have 3 witnesses: our project engineer, Mr. Philip Scott from Matrix New World, our project architect, Michael Higgins, and our planner, John McDonough, who will provide you with testimony in support of this application. And before we begin, for the record, we received 4 reports from the city. The first is a planner's report dated February 26th, 2025, Department of Engineering memo dated February 25th, 2025, Department of Engineering traffic memo dated February 25th, 2025, and a memo from the Water and Sewer Department that's dated March 3rd that we received this evening. As I previously indicated, while there are no variances, the city and the board's consultants did provide these reports with the request for testimony, revisions, and recommendations, which you will hear throughout the testimony of our professionals. And we would like to note that the applicant will agree to all of the suggested conditions of approval noted in the planner's report, all of the conditions and recommendations in the traffic report, and all of the conditions and recommendations in the Department of Engineering's report, as well as everything that's referenced in the report that we received this evening from the Department of Water and Sewer. So we are looking to comply and work with all of the departments to satisfy all of the concerns and conditions that are noted in those reports. I'd like to call Mr. Philip Scott as our first witness, please.
Good evening, Mr. Scott. You solemnly swear the testimony about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Yes, my name is Philip Scott, licensed professional engineer, state of New Jersey. I am the engineer of record for this project.
Thank you. Counsel?
Thank you. Mr. Scott, can you provide the board the benefit of your education and professional background for qualification?
Yes, absolutely. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. I have approximately 27 years of experience working in this field, 8 of which where I served as the director of engineering for the city of Newark. So it's very fitting for me, and I'm very proud to have served in that role, and I'm happy to be back in front of this board, which I have done many times prior to working for the city.
Thank you. And Mr. Scott, your license is current and in good standing. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Great. Thank you. I'd like to submit Mr. Scott as an expert providing testimony as in engineering.
You're accepted by the board. Please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Mr. Scott, before we begin, you received and have reviewed the reports issued by the city professionals. Is that correct?
Yes, I have.
And just for emphasis and testimony as part of the license expert here, you have no issues with complying with the recommendations identified as it relates to the engineering items, correct?
Yes, that is correct. We will be able to comply. There were a few different waivers that were mentioned in the reports, and, and we would be happy to take advantage of those waivers, but there are some instances where we won't need the waiver because we will be able to comply with the comments by the engineering department.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you. And so your office did prepare the plans that were submitted as part of this application, correct?
That is correct.
And if you can, I believe you provided an exhibit that you're going to, I will send over to the board secretary that essentially highlights the plans you'd like to present this evening, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so, Madam Secretary, these are just, it's a slide show. I will be sending them over and marking them as Exhibit A1, please. Mr. Scott, you want to do a share screen?
Yes, thank you. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thank you. So the first plan that we have here is a survey that was performed by ClearPoint Associates. They were working directly for the applicant, in which they did a survey that shows the site as it currently exists. If I zoom in just a little bit, we will see that the site, for the most part, is approximately 2/3 to 3/4 of the block size between Ferry Street, Market Street, Congress, and Jefferson. If I zoom in a little bit here, you can see the site. You'll see that for the most part, it's almost all impervious, with parking and a partially demolished building here. What I will do is I will go to my next slide within this presentation that will show the site as it was prior to us doing demolition of part of the remnants of an existing building. So if you look here, what's outlined in the yellow is what the site, the limits of the site. And you can see that there's a shell of a building here. I'm not exactly sure what that building was at one time, but it has since been dilapidated, and they've since were using this area for parking inside of the building. Somewhere along the way, before we actually submitted for site plan approval, we met with the councilman of the East Ward, Mike Silva, and he asked if the applicant would move forward in doing a demolition of this building, even prior to us getting site plan approval. We've actually applied for permits and received the permits to do that demolition, and the site currently looks the way that it is on this next exhibit here. So as you will see, still, shows the parking area, but that shell of a building has since been removed. And what you see is like, just concrete that for the footings that were left over from the demolition, but all of that will be removed as part of the demolition and new construction that's going to take place for this proposed project.
So, Mr. Scott, if you indicated the property fronts on Market Street, is that correct? And is bounded by Congress and Jefferson?
Yes, that is correct.
And it is located across from, if you can just give some context on the location.
Yes, so immediately over here across Market Street, well, this here is Market Street, this here is Raymond Boulevard. This is the area of the waterfront park that's I guess somewhat in construction. There's different levels, different phases of the park. So there's access to a lot of open space in the area. And this project is also going to have a lot of open space on the upper decks of the building, which the architect will go through as part of his testimony.
All right. And just to the left of where this is going further up Market and Raymond is Newark Penn Station, correct?
That's correct. Newark Penn Station is in this direction, going westbound on Raymond Boulevard. It's approximately 1,500 feet in distance. So it's in very close proximity to Penn Station.
Right. And the property consists of 2 tax lots, is that correct?
Yes, 2 tax lots, block 175, lots 1 and 80.
80, correct?
80, yes.
Correct. And it's a total acreage of approximately how much?
About 2.5 acres, 2.474 acres to be exact.
Okay. And so it's your understanding that should the board be inclined to grant this application, we will be filing an application for a lot merger and providing the board with a copy of that. Is that your understanding?
Yes, that's correct. That's typically done as part of the resolution compliance process. So yes, before we would be able to get any building permits from the city, we would be required to get that lot merger on file.
Okay. And as it relates to the existing conditions now, I think there were some questions with respect that were raised in the engineering report with respect to fencing, retaining walls, et cetera. All of those items have been removed or will be if this project is approved and proceeds. Is that correct?
That's correct. The site as it currently exists, since the demolition has removed whatever encroachments that may have been there. If there are any other encroachments due to fencing and things of that nature, we will remove them. We probably did not remove some of the fencing issues because we wanted to keep the site secured as best we could.
Okay.
Based upon our conversations or our meeting with the councilman, he was concerned with people hanging out, sleeping there, the homeless, making homes and tents there. So we tried to do the best we can to maintain the security with the existing fencing that was there that we could continue to use.
Great, thank you. You can proceed.
So, so this plan shows the site as it currently exists. This next slide will show the site as what we're proposing. So as it was discussed, the site is bound by Congress Street, Market Street, and Jefferson Street. We're going to have a number of entrances onto all of the streets, 6 to be exact. 2 of the entrances and exits will be, for access to the parking garages. There's going to be 620 parking spaces, as I think was mentioned in the attorney's opening. 150 of those spaces will be for public use. There's a lot of issues with parking in the East Ward, as we know. And with this project, we're not removing any parking. We're actually increasing the amount of parking that will be available for public use, even though parking is not a requirement as part of this application due to the proximity of major transit space like Penn Station.
Correct. So just wanted to clarify that for the record. Based on zoning alone, for the zoning requirements, given the proximity of this project site to Newark Penn Station, there is a 0 parking requirement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so notwithstanding, the applicant is proposing 620 parking spaces, I believe we indicated, and 150 of those will be dedicated to the city for public use. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And of that 620, 93 of those spaces will be what they call make ready for electric vehicles. So basically what that means is they may not all be installed as electric vehicle spaces at the initial point of construction, but over time that they will be increased how many that they can that you would be allowed to be or be able to charge over time, and that's in accordance with the state law.
Correct. So that's Senate Bill, that's compliant Senate Bill S3223, which requires that 15% the electrical charging parking spaces. That's correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, as was mentioned in the engineering review letter, there was questions about our driveway entrances here. So we have ingress and egress here along Congress Street. One of the comments was that we would need to increase the width of it to make for easier access or request a waiver. We are going to indeed increase that the width of that access so that we are no longer needing a waiver. Same thing with the same access point that is along Jefferson. There are a couple of other access points on the streets which require a waiver because we're only allowed to have two, but based upon the size and scope and scale of this project, we have a number of loading zones in different areas that would be beneficial for us to have the different, should I say, the loading areas. What we want to do is we want to try as much as possible to keep vehicles from, double parking on the street for deliveries and things like that nature. Also, when you have such a large number of units in an area, you're going to have a lot of people moving in and out of property. So we want to make sure that we have, plenty of access and availability of loading areas for the residents that will be moving in and out of a project of this magnitude.
And so just to be clear, there are 4 loading areas. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there are 2 driveways that access the garages, correct?
That is correct.
So that's a total of 6 driveways, and that is a waiver, and it was identified in the engineering department. And your recollection from the report is that the engineering department does not object to the granting of those waivers.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I just want to touch on this property in terms of the current use and the potential for runoff. Right now, the site is basically 100% impervious and there's no stormwater management system on site. I know that there were some concerns, but that by building this potential development, that it would be adding or contributing to an already heavily taxed stormwater system or sewer system. With this project, we are going to be putting in a stormwater management system that is going to maintain and collect all of the runoff from this project and maintain it on site and will not burden the existing system. In doing so, it's going to actually make the site better than what it currently is right now. We are not just meeting the state standards, which requires to reduce the 210 and 100-year storms, but we're also using, or should I say, we're going by the standard by the city of Newark, which is above and beyond what the state requires in terms of stormwater management. So this is going to be a situation where it's going to, help. Not that I believe that there's any flooding issues, but if there ever was any, this will help that situation. In addition to providing a stormwater system, we are going to be adding, or should I say, replacing the water mains on both Jefferson and Congress Street. We're going to be putting in new 12-inch, at least 12-inch water mains. I say at least because we literally just got the water and sewer comment letter maybe an hour ago, and they have certain requirements. But we will do whatever it is that's required by them. And in doing so, we will be increasing the amount of water, should I say, the water pressure and the flow, not just for this project, but for the neighborhood. In addition to that, we are going to repave the streets, both Congress Street and Jefferson Street, from intersection to intersection. Anywhere where we're doing any type of utility work, we will be repaving the streets.
Okay, and so there will be new curbs and new sidewalk improvements, correct?
Yes, we are putting new curbs, new sidewalks all the way around. We're making some changes. If I zoom in a little bit at the request of the Department of Engineering during our TRC review meeting, they asked us to do a little bump in on this curb and sidewalk in this area. Based upon, today's living and a lot of people using Ubers and Lyft and, different ride shares and special delivery services, they asked for us to have some area that people can pull over and either get dropped off or, make deliveries that's not going to be putting a burden on the street system. So we have 2 lobbies, one on Jefferson and then another one on Congress, where we're basically putting those drop-off areas We will have no parking there, and it will require a loading zone, and we will be getting a permit from the Division of Traffic and Signals on a yearly basis for that, for those parking areas, or should I say drop-off areas, excuse me.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're going to apply for the curbside loading zone permits for those two off-site curbside loading zones that are in front of Congress and Jefferson, and that was a request from the Department of Engineering at our TRC, correct?
That is correct.
Great, thank you. And, I believe there was a question just as a follow-up to that was noted in Mr. Traficante's report, the engineering report, I apologize. It says, do you want goods and or services delivered or proposed storefront and retail spaces, and why the applicant believes the loading zones are required? I believe you provided that testimony that in addition to these two spots, those 4 loading docks will provide some, and if I don't want to put words in your mouth, you indicated that it'll alleviate some of the pressures given for deliveries. Is that your understanding?
Yes, that's correct. As anyone who's familiar with the Ironbound, it's known for, congestion and sometimes double parking. So, what we are trying to do is trying to alleviate that before it becomes an issue. So that's why we have the additional loading zones where these different retail spaces will be able to use to pull their trucks off of the street so that they can load and unload in a safe manner.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the last slide and exhibit that I have is basically a rendering that was prepared by the architect, but it shows our landscaping and our sidewalk treatment that we are proposing. So as the attorney mentioned, we are replacing all curbs and sidewalks along the whole frontage of the property. And in doing so, we have like some type of artistic design with our sidewalks, but at the same time, we're trying to maintain and add as many trees as possible. One of the questions, or should I say comments from the review letter, is that they mentioned that we are short on the number of street trees that are required, which we do know and understand. But with the additional loading zones and the loading areas and drop-off areas, we just are not able to accommodate. What we are going to do or willing to do is we were willing to meet with the city's arborist to see if there's a way that we can increase the number of trees to get closer to our requirement. And if not, if we are unable to do so, we will make a contribution to the tree fund. In this instance, we are required to plant 34 street trees, and we are only able to provide 19 at this time. So hopefully after we have this meeting with the arborist, we may be able to find additional opportunities where we can safely plant additional trees.
Thank you. And Mr. Scott, I think there was another comment that was noted in the planner's report regarding the requirement for publicly accessible open space. There's a requirement in the redevelopment plan with respect to 10% is required. And our application documents indicate that 6% is provided. Is that your understanding?
Yes, that is correct. We're only able to provide 6%. The other 4%, is my understanding, requires some type of a contribution, which our client is, or the applicant is willing to make.
Great, thank you. So pursuant to the ordinance, a minimum of 10% of the development shall be developed with publicly accessible open space or a contribution. In this instance, we are providing 6% and we're making the contribution for 4%.
Correct.
Great, thank you. Mr. Scott, I think you indicated the waiver request with respect to the variances, the exception we're looking for with respect to the shade trees. We will agree to meet with the arborist. I believe that was noted in both Mr. Barry's report, the planner's report, as well as the Department of Engineering. So we are looking to ensure that we can provide the maximum amount of shade trees that are required. And if not, we will agree to comply with the city ordinance and make the contribution to the tree fund as you indicated, correct?
That is correct.
Great. And if we can just go on to the lighting plan on the property.
Okay, so the lighting plan, let me stop sharing 1 second to go to the other plans. Give me a second. Okay, our lighting plan, for the most part, shows, can you see my screen?
Yeah, and just for the record, this was the lighting plan that was submitted as part of your the original plans with the application, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so I'm not marking this. I just want, if you can give the reference, please, Mr. Scott, to the sheet.
This is sheet 10 of 14,
Right.
our site plan submission set.
Great.
So for the most part of the lighting is being provided by the existing street lights that are on the street. We are supplementing that lighting with some building mounted lights as what's shown here on the plan. In some instances, we probably exceed the amount of lighting that goes over the property line, as that's a very tough requirement to meet from the city's ordinance. But at the same time, it's our understanding that they would like to have additional lighting so that even if we are over, at least it helps and provides for safety in the area. So we are willing to do whatever is necessary to meet the requirements of the city.
Great. So with the exception of that one waiver that the Department of Engineering has no objection to with the illumination levels on the walkway, which exceeds the percentages, we will work to comply and make sure that this project satisfies and meets those conditions and the guidelines of the ordinance, correct?
Yes, we will comply.
Great, thank you. And then I believe I just have one other question. You indicated the various improvements that this project is going to make with respect to a stormwater water main. They're going to install a new water main. You've indicated that there will be an on-site system for stormwater that will improve the site. And you also said that that will actually exceed the state requirements. Can you just confirm with respect to utilities that whether the new utilities will be underground? Can you just confirm that?
Yes, all of the utilities proposed will be underground. As I mentioned, we just received the comment letter from the Department of Water and Sewer, and there are some additional things that they looks like that they're going to ask us to do, and we are willing to comply. With regard to any overhead or overhead wires, we will not be proposing any of that in this project. All of our utilities, electric, cable, telephone is all going to be underground.
Thank you. And with respect to, I believe the refuse and the garbage for the property as it relates to the outside, I think there were some questions that were just noted in the planner's report, or I believe in the engineering report. If you can just provide some guidance with respect to whether this project will provide for private haul.
Yes, the project will have private hauling services. The garbage or trash will be kept inside and then rolled outside at the time of pickup. So there will not be any trash that will be left unattended or anything unsightly on this project. It will be maintained inside and be picked up as needed by private hauling.
Great. And there was a question that was posed by the planner that will the trash room account for a distinct recycling area, since there's a requirement for new multifamily housing developments to include a designated recycling area?
Yes, I would rather leave that to the architect, as this is inside the building and this
Sure.
is area of expertise, but I'm pretty certain that it will have a recycling. Typically all new developments, account for recycling in their projects.
And then there are a few questions that were raised in the engineering report with respect to security. You can make the representation, at least, that the applicant will comply with the city ordinance to your understanding with respect to the cameras to be located in the parking lot and around the building. Is that your understanding?
Yes, so there's multiple levels of parking inside the building, and they will have security cameras throughout the area, as well as security cameras on the outside of the building and also at the lobby areas. We don't have the specifics on that at this time, but we will have probably a state-of-the-art security system, as well as there will be on-site armed security in accordance with the city's requirements.
Correct. All right. Yes, thank you. So this applicant will not only comply with the armed security ordinance requirement, they will also have the cameras to be located in the parking lot, around the building, and in the lobby common areas, correct?
That is correct.
And I think the last question that was raised in the engineering department's memo to you relates regarding the testimony on how we intend not to disturb any neighboring structures during construction and excavation. Can you provide any insight with respect to that?
Yes, that's going to be interesting. That really would be a question for the construction or general contractor, which we're not quite at that point yet. But typically what happens when you're building a project such as this, high rise with such heavy loads is that they will do a survey prior to construction for the surrounding buildings to make sure that there's we have a condition survey so we know what this condition was before they start. So in this instance, they're going to probably be removing foundations and from the previous building that was there. We don't know what else we're going to find. We're probably going to have to do deep foundations. So there'll be a lot of investigation and documenting of the existing surrounding area before they go into starting to do construction for this project. This being a high-rise building, more than likely we're going to have deep foundations where they have to go deep, dry piles. So before they do all of that, they'll do a condition survey and make sure that the work that they're doing is not going to impact or it doesn't affect the surrounding neighborhood.
Great. Thank you. I have no additional questions for Mr. Scott.
Mr. Scott, if you could release the screen, please. All right, you see it. Mr. Traficante has his hand raised.
Yes, we do. Council, did we hear a statement earlier that your team would adopt any and all recommendations by engineering and water and sewer, or
We did traffic and planning. So we will agree, yeah, we will agree to all of those conditions. And of course, the waivers, they have no objections granting to, we'll maintain those, but we will work to ensure that we will satisfy everything that's related to engineering in the planners report. And we will agree to comply with the planners, with the engineering, the traffic, and the Department of Water and Sewage memorandum.
All right. The only reason I just wanted to make sure that was certain before we swore Mr. Traficante in.
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Traficante. You solemnly swear the testimony about to give this board should be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name briefly and your affiliation.
My name is Charles Traficante. I am a principal engineer and a professional engineer. I am currently in the employment of the City of Newark Department of Engineering. My license is active and in good standing with the State Board.
You can proceed with your question, Mr. Traficante. You're accepted.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Scott. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah. Just to follow up, in the testimony you just provided about work, especially along the South Common property line, it's in the engineer's report, page 4, under item 4, demolition plan, Roman numeral 5. Applicant provide testimony to the board as to how they intend to not disturb adjacent structures. Part of that, would your, site contractor be willing to provide a statement of excavation signed and sealed by a licensed structural engineer licensed in the state of New Jersey, outlining means and methods, how they plan to dig along that especially along that South Common property line, without undermining or disturbing adjoining existing structures on adjoining lots to the south? Is that something within reason?
I can't speak for the general contractor. That is something that we can discuss with them. The one thing about that southern property line, there's no structures that are immediate to that area. There's one small structure, but for the most part, that southern property line is just an area for additional parking for the the adjacent property.
I believe there's an existing building, for the parking valets, whatever.
Yeah, there is one smaller building. But what was the comment number in your plan? You said page 4, Roman.
Page 4, item 4, demolition plan, Roman numeral 5.
Okay.
Along the South Common property line, which is what we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, we would have to discuss that with the general contractor, which I'm not sure exactly who that is at this point.
All right, well, would that be something to be considered at a pre-construction meeting?
Absolutely, we definitely consider it for sure.
Well, or they just consider. Is there any way we could get that? It's too early now. But...
If I can, Mr. Traficante, I think we are willing to provide separate signed and sealed demolition plans that will address that concerns.
By a licensed engineer in the state.
Yeah.
All right. Last question, regarding the retail commercial uses, there's over 18,000 square feet. Mr. Scott, you have any idea what those those retail tenants or retail businesses are going to be? And if what they are, based on what they are, will they have deliveries like at night, frequency of deliveries, noise impact? Would there be deliveries in the middle of the night if it's like a supermarket or something like that?
Yeah, so, this project, even in the best case scenario, is at least 4 years out. There's no way that the client would be able to sign leases to anybody at this time. They have been in communication with people and trying to make sure that they're providing the type of retail spaces and services that the community wants. We've had 2 community meetings, and during one of those community meetings, they were asking for some type of a healthcare type of center. That is in the redevelopment plan, and the applicant is willing to try to provide that for the community. But at this time, we just don't know exactly, who will be using those spaces. What I can say is that we will, whatever use that there will be, we will try to make sure that whatever those deliveries are will be used by those 4 loading areas, and also like the drop-off areas that we provide in front of the lobbies on both Congress and Jefferson Street.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Trafficante. Okay, I see that Commissioner Bias has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I don't know if this question is actually for Mr. Scott or for Jennifer, but my question, actually, you guys talked already. I was worried about the trash a little bit and those dumpsters. I was wondering where it was going to be. I heard about it. It's going to be indoor, which is it's a little confusing. And I would like to hear a little bit more about that. My second question, I'm glad you guys meet with the resident, have a meeting with them. That was one of my questions, what's going to happen. But I have a little piece over here. I would like to know who is going to be doing the job out there, because actually, supposedly, as we went back 5-10 years ago, I actually requested we pass a bill that I would supposed to be about 70% local resident doing the job, which is such a big property, big resolution, and I believe that should be a local resident doing the job up there. That's all, Ms. Madam Chair. Thank you.
So,
Okay. I'm sorry. Let me address the question about the trash. There will be a trash room for each building. I believe it's each building, and I'll let the architect provide his testimony to it as well. But everything will be inside the building through a compactor, and then will be rolled outside at the time of pickup. So there won't be any type of dumpster just sitting out on the street. It will be a scheduled with a private hauler, and when that time is that he's coming to pick it up, someone will roll out the compactor for it to be picked up and roll it right back inside. That's how it's planned to operate. With regard to construction, who's going to work on it, I will defer to Ms. Perez.
yes. So while I don't think that's within the purview of the board, I will say, Commissioner Baez, the good news is this project will be bound by the requirements from the city of Newark, which is 51% best efforts on an obligation and a commitment to employ Newark residents and contract with local Newark businesses. So this project will have to satisfy those requirements to ensure that they support local Newark businesses with respect to any construction materials, that they also participate in a hiring, what is it, like some type of I'm drawing a blank, but
Hiring fair, recruitment
yes,
drive.
correct. Thank you, Chairwoman. Yeah, so it's going to be like a hiring fair. We have to work with the Office of Affirmative Action, and that falls with Mr. William Baptiste, Ms. Kathy. So we will be working with them to ensure that we can comply with and that those job fair requirements and those local hiring requirements, not only for ensuring that we get our materials from local places, but we hire Newarkers and certainly minorities and women. And so that's going to be something that they're working towards.
Thank you. The reason I'm asking, because a few years ago, there was people, Ohio, Los Angeles company used to come over here and do the job, and they used to bring their own people. And this is Newark, stays in Newark. Okay, so I would love the local resident to do the job up there. Thank you.
Thank
Absolutely.
you, Commissioner Bias. Commissioner James.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Scott, I know you mentioned there were going to be, what, about 150 spaces for public usage?
Yes, that's correct.
So how are those spaces going to be, I guess, allocated? Considering that you're going to obviously have the remaining spaces, the remaining of the 620 to residents. Is there going to be a parking like attendant, or is there any specific parameters in place to, ascertain, what is used for the public versus the tenants?
Yes, so we currently are, talking amongst the team as to where we're going to put those spaces. We're going to locate them all on one floor. So all of the public spaces will be on one floor, whether it be the first floor or the basement floor. We're still figuring that out. But as you come into the parking garage, there'll be wayfinding signs that will direct you to where the public parking spaces are, and then also where the tenant parking spaces are. So there will be a separation. There won't be any mixing of the parking for the residents and the public area.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if this falls under your purview, but is the tenant spaces going to be allocated like first come, first serve, or is that going to be determined to the management company, or how is that going to be determined?
That's a very good question. I don't know that we know the answer to that just yet.
Okay. And my last question, how many ADA spaces are there?
That's a good question. We're definitely in line with the state requirements. I will have to check, but typically it goes by not the state requirement, actually the national ADA regulations. It goes by the total number of parking spaces. So the fact that we have 620 spaces is going to require X number of parking spaces. So I will do that research and I'll have that answer for you shortly.
Okay, thank you.
If I can, member Commissioner James, I'd just like to note that it's these parking spaces, the public parking spaces, will be given to the city. I believe they're having discussions with respect to the parking authority managing those spaces, but to supplement, just to reemphasize Mr. Scott's statement, they will make a concerted effort to separate. So there will be the public, and then the residential will be first come, first serve.
So is this, I guess, a memorandum with the city's parking authority where it would be paid parking for the public, or like, is it free parking, or has that been determined yet?
We will be giving it to the city for free. They will then decide how they're going to manage it. And this project is pursuing Aspire, so there will be a community benefits that's not related to this, obviously, but where that will be fleshed out in greater detail.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
It'll be at a very extremely low cost. That was the understanding. So for the public itself, it will be a very low cost for them to be able to utilize and access those spaces. That was the intent of providing that community those spaces.
Right. Thanks.
Novel. All right, who's your next professional?
I'd like to call our project architect, Mr. Michael Higgins.
Good evening, Mr. Higgins.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Higgins. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Michael Higgins, Higgins. I am the project architect for the project.
Okay. Mr. Higgins, can you provide the board with the benefit of your educational background and the status of your license, please?
Sure. I have a Bachelor's of Architecture degree from the New Jersey Institute of Technology in Newark. I've been a licensed architect for over 30 years. I'm a partner and the managing partner here at MHS Architecture based out of Hoboken, New Jersey, where I've been for 30 years. I've testified before this board and other boards throughout the state. My license is current and in good standing.
All right. Mr. Higgins, you're accepted by the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to share my screen.
Perfect, thank you. And I'd just like to note for the record that Mr. Higgins will also be working off of a presentation. We will mark this as A2, and I will provide that to the board secretary. Thank you.
Okay, can you see my screen?
You can.
Okay, and the first page, it's just a cover page. I'd like to say we're very excited to be here presenting this transformational project. having spent a lot of time on the Iberia restaurant and in the Ironbound section over my years at school and through the decades of the 80s and 90s. It's very exciting to be here presenting this project to you all. So thank you for your time. You see the first slide is an aerial photo of the site. Everybody sees that?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. So the site shows our building located with Congress Street to the west of the page, the top of the sheet, Market and Raymond Boulevard to the north, the Passaic River to the north, Jefferson Street to the east, and then Ferry Street further to the south. The project is comprised of 1,408 residential units located in 4 towers, which are 2 26-story towers at the center of the block and 2 30-story towers on the Market Street end of the block. There is a 20% affordable housing on site for this project that meet the requirements of the Uniform Housing Affordability Controls. I'll go to the next slide. This is an aerial photo of the project built out, showing its relationship to Penn Plaza, the Riverfront Park, the Passaic River, the downtown Newark building, the commercial core, the Penn Station rail bridge. The first slide is the basement of the building. We have 150 parking spaces located in this basement. It also is lined by mechanical spaces and support spaces for the building, which include 4 bicycle storage rooms. Each would have there's a total bike requirement of 370 bikes. Each room would have approximately 93 bicycles located, or possibly slightly more. I'll go to the ground floor. The ground floor, again, Congress to the top, Market to the right, Jefferson to the bottom of the page. There is a line that divides this gray dashed line that shows how the buildings would be phased. So you have phase 1, which would include approximately 760 of the residential units, about 380 in each of the 2 towers. And then phase 2 to the south, which would have approximately 648 units, approximately 324 per tower. The plan is color-coded, showing the retail uses in orange. The retail uses are all along the perimeter of the building on both sides, Jefferson, Congress, and Market Street. The retail uses vary in size from 800 square foot small pocket retail to a 9,300 square foot large retail along Market Street. What's also indicated in color is, in a purple color, are the residential components of the building. So you have 2 lobbies, 1 for each tower along Congress Street, and then 2 lobbies also on Jefferson Street, 1 for each tower. So 1 lobby for each of the phase 1 towers and 1 lobby for each of the phase 2 towers. They have their elevators and stair cores within there, and each building has its own loading and trash removal. I know there was some discussion about the trash, so I'll go into it just briefly. Each floor of the building has a trash chute access room for each tower. The trash comes down to a compactor at the ground floor. Recyclables will either come down, that's a different chute, or be picked up by a porter, and they're brought down on a daily basis and stored in that trash room. On trash day or recycling day, they would be carried into the loading area, and then they'd be brought to the private hauler. Either the private hauler would back into the loading space and pick them up, or they'd be brought out to the curb and through the loading space. So none of that will be occurring out on the street except on the day of pickup. Within the trash room will be adequate space and equipment for both baling cardboard and sorting recyclables. The white spaces on the plan represent the interior garage. It's a 4-level garage plus the basement parking. There'll be security at each of the garage entrances. One is located along Jefferson Street, one on Congress Street for ingress and egress. And the garages will function if just phase 1 is built, or if both phases are built together, they can be combined to be one active garage with adequate circulation and spaces. I'll go to the next slide. The garages are all screened. So on floors 2 through 4, we have the residential units starting. They will line the garage so that the headlights, glare from the headlights and the automobile's noise will not be perceived from the street level and won't be visible outside the building. When we get to the 5th floor, the towers come off of the base of the building. So the building's concept is a 4-story base with these 4 towers. On the 5th floor, the towers are all connected, and all this purple space represents interior amenity space for the building's residents. And it frames sort of a courtyard that faces south, which is a quieter courtyard, and a courtyard that faces east and the river and the views, which might have a pool deck and outdoor amenities. The amenities thought of for this space, and I believe it's about 62,000 square feet of amenity space just on this level, would include health and wellness, exercise, fitness, quiet rooms, things like music rooms, library, contemplative rooms. They haven't been fully programmed yet, but it'll be consistent with a first-class type of building of this type.
And Mr. Higgins, there's also some landscaping that you can see there that is proposed throughout those amenity spaces, correct?
That's right. About 50% of all the usable roof area in the building will be green roof or landscaped of one type or another. Let's see. This is the 6th floor plan. So you'll see the top of those amenity spaces also are landscaped and will have active uses programmed for the building's residents. The yellow represents the different units. So we have 1,408 units. Of those, 283 will be affordable per the UHAC requirements. There will be 313 studios, which will range in size from 450 to 580 square feet. There will be 517 one-bedroom units, ranging in size from 678 to 780 square feet. There will be 485 two-bedroom units, ranging in size from 960 to 1195 square feet. And there will be 93 three-bedroom units, ranging in size from 1,200 to 1,330 square feet.
And you indicated this will be part of inclusionary zoning. These income restricted units will be integrated within and dispersed among the market rate units throughout the 4 towers, correct?
That's correct. And they'll meet the UHAC square footage requirements and other requirements of the uniform housing affordability controls.
Great. And that includes that they are comparable to the market rate units, correct?
That's correct. Sometimes the requirements are even larger than some of the market rate units. So in the case of studios, the affordable units will be larger than the smallest market rate studios.
Thank you.
The building, as you'll see from the plan, has a sort of a folded facade to allow for visual interest both from the outside and to allow views to happen to the north and south or east and west, as the case may be, depending on the unit. The building stepped back at one of the upper floor plans, and you'll see that in the section, to allow more light and air and to reduce the building as it gets taller. This is the top level of the roof of the residential buildings, and you can see it's a green roof as well. The 4 purple spaces are about 2,000 square foot amenity level. So there'll be like a sky lounge or a place to take in the views, both to the south to the airport, to the north to the river, to the west to downtown Newark, and then beyond and the sunsets, and then to the east to Manhattan and the Hudson River. This is a diagrammatic elevation that shows the different heights of the building. The 26-story towers, Ferry Street is down here. So you can see we're in the middle of the block. Raymond and Market Street are on the right side of the page where the 30-story towers are. And the buildings just have a variety of setbacks and step backs. And this is the 4-story base at the base of the building. This is a section cut through the parking garage, so you can see the garage is enclosed by units on or retail on all sides, and then you have the basement parking, and you see how the ramp system works. This level is the 5th floor amenity space that links all the towers, and then these are the towers beyond. This is a rendering. This next slide is a rendered image looking from the riverfront park, looking sort of southwest in the southwest direction, showing the towers. So the tower's facade, so this is the base of the building. That is the 4-story base. It's a mixture of brick accents and brick facade materials, and also stone accents, metal panels, and metal framing around the window. The upper towers are the stepped, you see the stepped facade along the glass towers, but they're primarily glass and metal panels, and they're mainly the goal is to take advantage of all the views to the city and also provide a lighter feeling appearance for these towers that sit on the base. I'll show, this is a close-up now. This is sort of from Raymond Boulevard crossing. This is Market Street here, and then this is Congress Street to the right side of the page. You'll see the base of the building has a lot of brick detailing work. It has some metal frames surrounding the buildings. The windows have some recesses and some other detailing to give it a pleasant pedestrian feeling. We spent a long time working with planning on increasing the amount of landscaping at the ground floor. So you'll see, even though we're short some of the street trees, along Market Street, the landscaping should be quite nice with a lot of raised planter beds, opportunities for maybe some outdoor seating and street trees.
And Mr. Higgins, just to follow up on that, we can just represent that the design complies with the requirements for building materials noted that are in the redevelopment plan, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And we're not seeking any variances or anything with respect to the transparency that this project complies, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, you can proceed.
This view is from Penn Station, sort of Penn Plaza, possibly being on the sidewalk in front of Penn Plaza, looking back at the building. This is the Congress Street facade, so you'll see the variation of the building. One of the things, the comments we received was how we could comply with the bird-friendly ordinance for the glass. So some of the items that we'll be doing to comply with that are the stepping form of the building provides variable play of light across the facade, which gives the birds visual clues that there are, that there's a building there, that they're not flying through the sky. There's also the HVAC system that we're planning to use is a PTAC system that provides a noise that also provides birds with a audible cue that helps them identify. They have very good hearing and they're able to pick up on those senses and avoid the glass wall. There's also going to be a coating on the glass for both solar, and it will provide an ability for the birds to detect it as well. This is a close-up on Congress Street, so showing sort of the building's facade. The base facade has some bay windows, metal accents, and the overall goal was to create a very active ground floor facade with retail and lobby uses to provide more eyes on the street, so that as part of the redevelopment plan's goals to allow people to have access to Newark's waterfront, this will provide a very pedestrian-friendly street character that people will be comfortable walking through with the proper amount of lighting and activities to make people comfortable taking that path down Congress or down Jefferson towards the waterfront.
And you indicated that while we may not satisfy the requirements, although we agree to meet with the arborist with respect to shade trees, this building provides some additional landscaping and planters that necessarily don't go towards the count, but will add towards some aesthetic landscaping in addition to the other items you just discussed, correct?
That is correct. I'd also just like to say that all rooftop equipment, there will be some mechanical equipment on the rooftops. It would all be properly screened from view. There are some green building sustainability standards that we'll comply with in accordance with the redevelopment plan, but that will include the green roofs that I also mentioned already, a 300 square foot green wall, Energy Star appliances. The first floor facade shall be 60% transparent. There's an open space requirement that will comply. We have 6% of the open space. In addition to some other cool roofs that will be provided on non-usable roofs. So they'll have a SRI in conformance with the cool roof requirements. There's also some signage. We will have a blade sign at each retail area. The lettering will be 30 square feet or less. There will also be 2 building signs at each lobby entrance to be mounted on the canopy, and there will be 12-inch high lettering not to exceed 30 square feet. And again, the 6 driveway deviation just allows for adequate off-street loading and unloading during the project's phasing and throughout its project life.
And just to piggyback on that lends itself to why we are seeking a waiver with respect to the active ground floor requirements, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so but for those access ways, we would be able to provide that active ground floor requirement, correct?
Yes, yes. And depending on what the final rulings are with location to electric services and things, once we work with the utility companies, if it's possible, we will take those mechanical spaces at the ground floor and probably convert them over into retail as well, if it's possible.
Right. And so by virtue of providing parking where none is required, we are in essence asking for a waiver with respect to that active ground floor requirement from the redevelopment plan, as you just indicated.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
I think that concludes my testimony.
And I have no additional questions for Mr. Higgins. Oh, I think I do. I apologize, Madam Chair. I would say, okay. Mr. Higgins, you've reviewed the reports, and as it relates to those items architectural in nature, you have no issues with us complying with those requirements. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Carrillo, are you finished with your questions?
I am now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sir, can we reclaim the screen?
Yes. Let me see. How do I stop it?
It should say stop sharing. Beautiful.
Did I stop?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
great.
it. All right. Commissioners, any questions?
Chair,
Yes, Commissioner James.
thanks. I have one question. You said you had amenity space. Is that open to the public or is that just reserved for the residents?
The amenity spaces are for the residents of the building.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Bias.
Yes, is those apartments gonna have a laundromat in there? They're gonna have their own laundry?
They will have their own laundry. That's the plan currently, and there'll probably be a common laundry room or maybe a few common laundry rooms for larger things to be washed and dried.
Thank you. Second question, is those windows, are they bulletproof or just regular?
The lobby doors?
For the building, for the house.
I don't think it's been determined yet if they would be bulletproof. There would probably be something that we develop as the plans get ready for the construction drawings.
I think that would be very nice if that would be bulletproof. But thank you for your question, for your answer.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Bias, can I ask you, which windows are you speaking of? All the windows or the windows on the ground floor? The lobby doors? Which windows?
For the first 3 or 4 floor, I believe that should be perfect to have a bulletproof because I be kid up there, a bullet can come anywhere. If they go through those windows, anybody can get shot up there. And that's why all of them should be like that.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I was curious about how many 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. I love the design. It looks very inviting.
Thank you.
Talk to us about the bedroom.
Sure. So there are 300. So there's 1,408 units total. 313 of those units are studios, ranging in size from 450 to 580 square feet. 517 are 1 bedrooms. from 678 square feet to 780 square feet. 485 are 2 bedrooms, which range in size from 960 to 1195 square feet. And 93 are 3 bedrooms ranging in size from 1200 to 1330 square feet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Can you repeat the dimensions on the 3 bedroom?
Sure. The 3 bedrooms range from 1200 square feet to 1330 square feet.
All right. Thank you much. All right. Your next witness, please, Ms. Carrillo.
I'm sorry, Chair. One question to follow up on that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
What was the breakdown of the IZO units?
Yes, so roughly, and I can give you the exact breakdown, but roughly it is 20% maximum can be studios or 1 bedrooms. 20% minimum must be 3 bedrooms. And then the balance can be 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms. So we have 20% studios, 60% 2 bedrooms, and 20% 3 bedrooms.
And I do recall, just for clarity purposes, the council saying that there won't be a distinction between the IZO units versus the market rate units in terms of size.
That's correct. And sometimes the IZO units will be larger than the market rate units, just because of the requirements of UHEC.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner James. All right. Your
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
could you talk to us a little bit about, because I heard bulletproof windows and glass. Can you talk to us a little bit about security at the building?
Sure, I believe Mr. Scott did provide it, but I will just to refresh the board from his testimony, we will comply with not only the security camera requirements for common areas, and this is a testimony put on by Mr. Scott, both in the parking garage, common areas, the lobby areas, and the surrounding building on the outside, but we also will comply with the armed guard requirements under the city ordinances, where any units, any buildings over 100, and then any building that has its own lobby. So there are distinctions in that ordinance, but we will comply 100% with those requirements with respect to the security, both camera-wise and actual staff in person, armed security.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. All right. Ms. Carrillo Perez, who's your next professional?
Mr. John McDonough.
Good evening, sir.
Hi, Madam Chair.
Good evening, Mr. McDonough. Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give this board should be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Sure. Hi there, everyone. My name is John McDonough, MC capital DONOUGH. I am the project planner.
Thank you. Counsel?
Thank you. Mr. McDonough, if you can provide the board with the status of your license and your educational background, please, for qualification.
Sure. My license as a professional planner here in the state of New Jersey is current and in good standing. And my license, my certification on the national level, AICP, American Institute of Certified Planners, is also current and in good standing.
Very good. You're accepted by the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. McDonough, you have reviewed the applicable city ordinances, the redevelopment plan, and the amendments to that for the subject property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you are familiar with the city's master plan as well, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you've reviewed the application, the plans, and have heard the testimony that was presented this evening by our professionals, correct?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and if you can just provide the board with a summary of your conclusions concerning the proposed development, please.
Sure thing. We'll start at the start with sort of the exclamation point on this application. Compliments, of course, to the city leadership, to the community at large, this board, the planning board, and your professionals for the vision to do something really special on a really special location and a really special site in the community. And also compliments to our applicant here for following the letter of the zoning controls and that vision essentially to a T as well, respecting the zoning parameters, complying with all of the use parameters, all of the bulk parameters, very, very minor relief from a design standpoint, which, as you've heard from the professionals before me, are both reasonable and appropriate. Planners operate within a legal framework. There is very, very strong case law as to how the board should consider an application such as this. And really, what the courts tell us is that it's not up to the purview or the individuality of what does or doesn't constitute good planning. The role of the board to assess how this project complies with the zoning ordinance. And as you've heard, it does comply with all of those use and bulk parameters. What I'd like to do with my presentation this evening is break it up into 4 parts. We're going to give you a little recap of a description of the site, a little recap of the description of the project and how the two marry up together. Third, we're going to talk about the zoning considerations here and how this project aligns with all of your zoning parameters. And then finally, number 4, we'll sort of glue it all together as to the planning reasons why this project should be approved.
Thank you.
All right.
We're going to enter an exhibit right off the bat.
I'd like to mark it as A3, please, Madam Chair and Mr. McDonough.
And Madam Chair, A3 for the record is simply going to be an aerial bird's eye satellite imagery of the subject site to give you the greater context of where this site is located. It would be in the lower right-hand corner as we've labeled it here. And as you've heard, we're talking about 2 tax lots in the city, Block 175, lot number 1, and lot number 80. Through Mr. Scott's testimony, you heard that this has triple frontage and comprises approximately 2.7 acres and presently is not contributing anything to the welfare of the community as a vacant lot, or I'll say an urban void in the Newark city landscape. We're in the Ironbound neighborhood, and you could see some of the great civic amenities that are in close proximity to this site. Not the least of which, of course, is the Passaic Riverfront, and that's the essence of the redevelopment plan that we are in, to celebrate this great river and to bring people to this great natural resource. Not only the natural city amenity, but also to the other civic amenities, including this transportation hub over at Penn Station, which is not only a local transportation hub, but a major regional transportation hub in the New York metropolitan area and one of the busiest rail stations in all of the United States. It's served by 3 New Jersey Transit commuter rail lines, the Newark Light Rail, New York, New Jersey Path Rapid Transit System, and all 11 of Amtrak's Northeast Corridor services, including the Acela. Penn Station is also Newark's main intercity bus terminal, served by carriers like Greyhound, Bolt, and Fullington Trailways. The station is served by 33 local and regional bus lines operated by New Jersey Transit Operations, and additionally, there are multiple bus stops within walking distance of the site. We've also got, of course, within reasonable distance, the great downtown, the great entertainment venue of Prudential, and of course, Ferry Street, right down the street, which is the greatest, if not one of the greatest streets in all of New Jersey. That's this important context that we start with in an extremely important site and an extremely important location, all of which is very special. The applicant has responded with a very special project here. Complete redevelopment of this vacant void in the landscape, all existing structures that will be removed, replaced with what I would call a premier mixed-use transit-oriented development that is going to include all of the nice planning buzzwords, including affordable housing, interior and exterior amenities. We've got streetscape improvements. We've got significant open space, and clearly a project that will be a focal point and transformative in its nature. Through Mr. Higgins' testimony, you saw the beauty and detail that are going to go into this project. 4 iconic high-rise buildings, 2 30 stories, 2 26 stories, delivering over 1,400 dwelling units and approximately 18,000 square foot of commercial retail space. Those 30-story towers are going to overlook the river. Those 26-story towers are going to overlook Ferry Street, all of which are going to be integrated in a nice park-like setting that will unify the site and connect all of these buildings to look as one integrated whole. Importantly, as you heard through council at the outset, this project is going to include a 20% affordable set aside, whereby 283 affordable housing units will be provided in accordance with the city's IZO. All residents, regardless of income levels, will have access to more than 100,000 square feet of amenities inside, outside, and on the rooftop, including a fitness and a wellness center, co-working areas, active and quiet seating areas, and a pool deck that faces the river. You heard about the parking amenity with the 620 off-street parking spaces, including 150 public parking spaces within, and 15% of those spaces being EV in accordance with our state regulations. The project will include street trees along Market, along Congress, along Jefferson Street. We've got planting beds along the sidewalk that are going to be adorned with urban-tolerant native plant species, and on the upper levels, there will be green roofs and rooftop terraces. The third part, we look at the zoning considerations. We're here in Newark's Public River and Access and Redevelopment Plan. The intent, of course, of the redevelopment plan is to continue the positive rebirth of the waterfront. The plan encourages high density and large buildings along the waterfront. This project is spot on with that intent. We're within the MU2 or mixed use 2 sub-district of the redevelopment plan, and the project fully complies with all of the MX2 sub-district. Notably, the use complies. High-rise multifamily dwellings and apartments above the first floor are permitted in the zone. We've got commercial and retail uses permitted in the zone, and mixed and multiple uses are permitted in the zone. The buildings will all comply in terms of the height requirement of 30 stories in the MX2 zone. No relief is required for density, no relief for floor area, no relief for building coverage, lot coverage, step backs or setbacks on any of the sides. The building materials, the fenestration, the transparency, all comply. The parking will comply. 150 publicly accessible parking spaces, which is what the project will provide, and that's a requirement. Additional resident parking spaces, even though they are not required by the redevelopment plan. The site is exempt from parking requirements because it's within 1,500 feet of a commuter rail station. Nonetheless, the applicant is providing that as well. And then lastly, the design complies with open space requirements through a combination of public open space and the contribution that you heard. It will meet the planning intent for providing parks, seating areas, art installations, walkways, expanded sidewalks, similar elements throughout the plan. In terms of the relief that the applicant is seeking, relatively minor here. You heard it again through council and the witnesses before me, all of which are reasonable and appropriate. The number of shade trees, we're looking for relaxation there to address sight lines, and we'll meet with your city arborist for enhancements in that regard. The walkway illumination is going to be a supplement to the existing illumination that's already there. That is going to provide for additional lighting, which will provide for additional safety. All interrelated here for access and circulation and functionality. The number of driveways, where 6 are proposed. The aisle width, where 22 feet is proposed at certain locations. And the active ground floor use, again, in the interest of providing for those refuse spaces, all fall in line with the planning requirement for reasonable and appropriate. In terms of the planning reasons for approval here, again, project positives are going to substantially outweigh any negatives. We know that planning operates within a legal framework. I can tell you that I lived a case in Randolph that was known as the Pizzo Manton case, which was actually a project that fully complied with the zoning regulations and was actually denied based on a board feeling that the project was inconsistent with quote unquote good planning principles. That weaved its way through the courts, and at the Supreme Court level, our highest level, the denial was reversed, and the court determined that, this is Pizzo Manton, not John McDonough's words, that the essence of good planning is rooted in your zoning ordinance, where an application complies, it should be approved. It should not come down to discretionary determinations as to what constitutes sound planning and the promotion of the public welfare. In terms of the site plan, access, circulation, parking, landscaping, lighting, all designed in accordance with sound site planning principles. And under the balancing, to the extent it applies here, I think the board can certainly make considerations with respect to equitable growth, jobs at prevailing wage, delivery of all new housing stock on a vacant piece of property in the community that involves no displacement of a single person, no relocation of a single person, not only new quality housing stock, but also affordable quality housing stock. Adding landscaping to a desolate site, adding lighting for additional safety, adding infrastructure for environmental and utility purposes. You heard about the new sidewalks. You heard about the new stormwater that will meet or exceed NJDEP regulations. You heard about the new water main as well. All said, at the end of the day, this project is going to promote multiple purposes of the land use law, including purpose A, promotion of the general welfare, because the project will deliver permitted uses, including residential and retail uses in a transit-oriented setting. Purpose G, to provide for a variety of uses in appropriate locations. As I said, this is a very special spot in the community and an opportunity to do something very special, which our applicant has delivered here, putting people in close proximity to civic and transit amenities. Purpose M, the promotion of efficient use of land, revitalization of underutilized land, which is not serving any public purpose, putting it back to functional use. And then finally, I'll let Mr. Higgins' exhibits and visuals speak for themselves. The promotion of a desirable visual environment, because the project will feature highly attractive buildings that will overlook the waterfront and certainly make a desirable visual environment along this particular section of the city. With that said, I believe relief certainly can be granted without any substantially adverse impacts to the public or the zone plan. As I said at the start, to bring this back full circle, this is a golden opportunity to do something special, very special, at a very special location within the city, and our applicant has delivered in that regard. Again, compliments to the board, the leadership, and our applicant for doing something that's certainly in the interest of the city. Most importantly, the statutory criteria for relief are strongly met here, and approval is warranted. With that, I'll finally take this off the screen.
Thank you. Mr. McDonough, just to summarize what you've indicated, high-density transit-oriented development in close proximity to Penn Station is sound planning. Is that correct?
Indeed. It is no secret that we have run out of land here in New Jersey to put people. We have to put people somewhere, and putting them by our huge public investment in mass transit is certainly consistent with smart growth.
And it's also consistent with the city of Newark's master plan in this redevelopment area. Is that not your understanding?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I think I have no other additional questions. Just to clarify, and just in case there was any confusion, we are seeking some of these waivers as a result of providing parking. You mentioned it in your testimony, as did our professionals. Parking is not required here. However, the applicant is providing parking, correct?
That is correct.
Great. Thank you. I have no additional questions for Mr. McDonough.
Thank you. Commissioner James.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. McDonough, I do believe there was testimony that you hosted 2 community meetings. Is that accurate?
That is correct. I was at both, yes.
Okay, no, definitely commend you for that, knowing that we have quite a few applications that come to this board that don't have not one. So I just wanted to ask a question. In terms of those community meetings, could you elaborate on what was established, or any particular community benefits that took place?
Sure. Again, they were held in a public forum. I forget the name of the venue, but it was a large hall. And community benefits, again, it was an interactive process with the public. We talked about improvements at the ground level. We talked about the integration of the landscaping, of the open space. We did talk about the community healthcare center, which is something the applicant certainly will not foreclose to the extent that the applicant can actually procure that. Certainly will be something that's pursued here to the extent practical. Again, working within the confines of the ordinance, the redevelopment plan, the master plan, and the input of the community as well, providing for affordable housing, over 280 affordable units as well, making this development accessible to citizens of Newark.
And the affordable housing units, that's 30% of AMI?
I'm going to yield to council. It's in accordance with, I believe, a redevelopment agreement. I don't know the actual number.
Yeah,
Council.
yeah, sure. Let me just provide some clarification. The
Sure.
meeting actually was at the Portuguese Sports Club, just to provide clarification. There were two meetings that took place November 8th, 2024 and August 27th, 2024. Those were the two communities that took the meetings that took place. Mr. McDonough spoke correctly that we had proposed some a different plan and some changes with respect to landscaping and common areas. Those revisions were made as a result of feedback we got back from the community. They wanted to see some hospital medical use, and so that's what we've committed to working to try to ascertain on the Market Street frontage side, that 9,000 square foot retail commercial space. And the project applicant will be, the applicant will be looking to secure Aspire financing. And so under Aspire, you know, there are different income bands that actually exceed and are better, provide better affordability controls than the IZO. And so consistent with IZO, we are providing the 20%, if we're just speaking of IZOs, 20% on-site, 100% for those 20% will break down into 85% at 80% AMI, 5% at 60, no, 10% at 80, 5% at 60, 5% at 40. Under the Aspire guidelines, it's actually more units at the 60% AMI. And so that's actually more advantageous to this project because the level of affordability is actually better.
Okay, got you. But in terms of the I guess the medical component, that hasn't been determined yet, you're saying?
No, we've had discussions with with one Newark hospital operator in their interest. And so, you know, obviously we're at the early stages here. We're seeking approvals. Right. Hopefully, if the board is inclined to grant that, then those discussions can proceed.
And if approved, what would be the groundbreaking date? Like what do you expect to start construction if approved?
I'm going to suggest with respect to compliance and financing, it might be a year out, just because we have to obviously secure financing. There's a lot of infrastructure.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner James. Commissioner Baez.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. Somebody corrected me. I don't know if I'm right or I'm wrong on that, but going back to the trash, I don't know how it works in the Big Horizon, but let's talk about a little bit of trash and the recycle. Did you have a different place to put the recycle, or it goes the same at the same compact?
I'll call back our Mr. Higgins. Is that because the trash is located within the building and there's a compactor? So if Michael, can you just please?
Yes. So first of all, to comply with all the City of Newark requirements. But in general, the way it works is there's a trash chute on every floor in every building where the residents bring their trash, drop it down the chute. It goes down to a compactor where it's compacted and stored until trash day. The recycling is either collected inside that trash room in bins that are picked up on a daily basis, cardboard, plastic, tin cans, glass, and brought down to the trash room. The cardboard would go through a baler, which compacts it and binds it up. And the recyclables are sorted in whatever way have to be. And then those trash rooms are located adjacent to the loading docks. So the trash gets brought into the loading dock, and either the private hauler backs into the loading dock, or the trash comes out the loading dock into the truck and is taken away.
No, thank you. No, but I mean, we talk about the recycle. Recycle the trash is a totally different thing. What I'm asking over here, did you have a different compact that you're going to dump to the recycle, or the resident going to have to bring the recycle to the?
It's same trash room. You bring the recyclables on every floor to the same trash room. So the garbage goes in one chute. The recyclables either go in another chute or they go in a bin in that room, and then they're collected by the building management.
But thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Baez. Commissioners, are there any other questions? All right, seeing none. We will open up to hear from our public. See, I see something. Mr. Trafficante.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Mr. Trafficante, you're under oath.
I was just wondering, is there going to be any testimony by the traffic engineers since they did do a traffic impact study?
So I can attest to it. The memorandum we received required some additional information and some warrant studies. And so we've agreed to comply and provide the clarifications that you had requested in your report to us and provide those additional warrant studies. So everything would require additional work. And so we are not providing any testimony, is that the comments and the recommendations we received, we're agreeing to comply with.
All right, I was just wondering if, the memo from February 25th asked for testimony, so.
I believe it did ask for some clarification. Our engineer, some of it related to the loading areas. So I apologize, Mr. Trafficante. I think it was included in Mr. Scott's testimony, but we will agree that and stipulate to the record that your warrant studies, those additional studies you asked for, and that other area for that Downing Street will be included, and we will agree to comply with those comments.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So members of the public, at this point, we are going to open up. Please understand that you will have 3 minutes to share your comments or questions, after which we will go on to the next person. So at this time, if there are any members of the public who would like to speak, please press the raise hand on your device, or if you're calling in, we would want you to dial *9.
112 people.
Chair, I'm going to bring the first person over. Miss Austin Singleton, if you could come off of mute and turn your camera on if you can. Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Miss Switcher. How are you?
I'm well.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes.
Thank you. Just please state your name and address for the record.
Felicia Austin Singleton, 152 12th Avenue. Good evening, commissioners. Hey, Commissioner Baez. So I'm looking at this as the developer's dream. I'm gonna keep saying that. I want to touch a few things. It's 3 minutes, so I don't know how much I'm gonna really get to. Your inclusionary zoning, and commissioners, I want you to take into consideration that these folks keep saying the bare minimum, the minimum requirements can be done, can be done. They're not giving us total commitments. How many security guards are they going to have for 1,400 apartment buildings? It says one armed guard overnight for at least 150. You got 1,400 people. We don't even have enough police officers for that in the city to even accommodate 1,400 more. I want you to keep in mind, they kept saying we're doing the bare minimum. Why didn't they do 80% affordable with 20% of the market rate? This is not conducive for us in Newark. And then this seems like more, maybe I should say, a politician's dream to have the 2 minutes to get on Excella. That's not our concern. Our concern is for the residents of the city of Newark. Where's the PLA? What union company are they going to have? They had all these unions at the sports bar complex. What union are they going to have to ensure that these are going to be for Newark residents? I don't see the apartments for the Newark residents. I don't see the affordable housing for the Newark residents, nor do I see anything letting us work here. But the storm rain runoff, that was something that I had said something about, and I needed y'all to do some studies on this part of the land right here. You get flooding right here by Ferry, right there by the Passaic River. It floods every time. And if I'm lying, ask the commissioners, don't it flood every time? Did they do a traffic study? This is a very congested place without even the 1,400 people coming in. You always have backup by Iberia's, right? Wherever the name of that restaurant was there, right there where the Burger King used to be. That's always traffic. You're not going to eliminate traffic. Actually, you're going to create more traffic. You're going to put the side in curb runoffs. Who do you have to direct these people from coming out this parking garage when it's traffic on both sides already? It's a lot of things, and I can't do it in 3 minutes, but yeah, Jesus. That's what I'm saying, sir. That's exactly what I'm saying, Jesus. And that's why we know that this project is not for Norcas, and I'm going to fight it. I love Jennifer, love Phil, but this is not for Norcas. Because if I have to complain and you say Jesus, then you need to find him and go someplace else and build this, because this is not for Norcas. Not for the affordable housing, not for the traffic, not for the flooding. It's not for us. And at
Thank
the
you,
end,
ma'am.
thank you.
All right, who's the next? Madam Secretary.
Mr. Rosa?
Good evening, Mr. Rosa. Can you please turn on your camera and unmute your microphone?
Should be okay.
All right,
Hi,
beautiful.
can you hear me? Good evening,
Yes,
sir.
I
You
can.
solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes,
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
my name is Manuel Rosa. My business address is 18-20 Bloomfield Avenue in Belleville. I have been a resident of the Ironbound of the city of Newark since 1955, and I operate my businesses out of the city of Newark, including Lilac Development Group and Benfica Development Group.
All right, good evening, sir. You have 3 minutes.
I am in favor of this project being approved for a number of reasons, most of which is it is, as the planner said, a very special development that is not easily built anywhere else. It is close to $1 billion of investment that this group is going to be making. It shows tremendous confidence from such a large developer that they believe the city of Newark has a great future. 1,400 apartments, 280 set aside for affordable housing, and $20 million in new infrastructure for water and sewer lines, no expense to the city of Newark. $5 million of community reinvestment back to the city of Newark. Millions of dollars of annual revenue, new taxes to the city of Newark. More police will be hired and better protect our residents. Ironbound's new skyline will put Ironbound and our great city of Newark on the national map. Do not expect help from Washington, D.C. Our state, our city, and chess developers are making this possible. 150 public parking spaces, windfall profit for hundreds of local businesses, walking distance to Penn Station, that will also undergo millions of dollars in renovation. Local workers from the city of Newark will be hired and union scale wages will be paid, including laborers, local 472 and other local businesses. It pleases me that such a large development group as Chess Builders chose Newark rather than Jersey City or New York City, and I think it's a great project, and I urge the board to approve it.
Thank you, Mr. Rosa.
You're welcome.
Madam Secretary, our next person.
Apologies, my screen turned out on me. Ms. Relaford Afolo, if you could turn on your camera and come off of mute, please. Ms. Relaford Afolo, can you hear me?
I'm here. So sorry, so sorry.
Thank you. Good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Janice Relaford Afolo, Pavilion Apartments, City of Newark, New Jersey. So there was a question about the community meetings. Yes, the community meetings were held, but I feel, in my opinion, that we were not heard. We did not want, the community was against the 30-story buildings. They thought it was, too much. And they just thought that it would take away from the fabric of what the Ironbound has now. They were not against having the development, there, but what they were concerned about was how tall these buildings would and how overpowering they would be in the neighborhood. So we talked about also the security ordinance. So as being a resident of the Pavilion Apartments, the ordinance states that you're supposed to have 24-hour security guards and then 16 hours of armed guards. Now, looking at these 4 buildings, they would need 24 hours in each building of security. And if the buildings are 100 feet or more away, they would need 16 hours for building A, 16 hours of building B, C, D of armed guard services. Now we were told that the parking garage would have, under the CBA, I was under the impression we would have 250-something parking spaces for the community. But now I see that we're talking about 160. And so, and then of course, we would have to pay to park in those parking garages, in the parking garage. I am also concerned about the environmental aspect. You're talking about we're going to work with the arborists. Ironbound is we need trees. You're talking about putting another power plant down there in the Ironbound. We need the trees. I mean, it's to me, you're building 30-story buildings, 26 or 28 stories, and then you don't want to put the trees, and you're talking about little green shrubberies on top of the roof. We need trees, especially if that 4th power plant comes down to the Ironbound section. And then I'm looking at all this glass, and Commissioner Baez had, a very valid question. Is that front entrance going to be bulletproof? They didn't talk about whether or not that the entrances are going to be ADA compliant. People may move in and they might live there for and then might need a wheelchair access. So you didn't talk about that. And another big factor, you didn't mention anything about fire. How are, the fire exits or whatever. I look at this whole plan and we look at how beautiful the building is, but what about the inside of the quality of life that these residents who's moving in going to have? And believe me, this is not for Newarkers.
Sorry to cut
Thank
you
you,
off, but
ma'am.
that's time.
Thank you.
And thank you for listing your points in the way that you listed them, both you and the other folks who have presented as well. Mr. Baglivo?
What's that?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Excuse me. My name is Vince Baglivo. I'm the Executive Director of the Ironbound Business Improvement District in Newark, New Jersey, address 76 Prospect Street.
Good evening, sir. You'll have 3 minutes to make your statements.
Thank you. On behalf of the Ironbound Business Improvement District, I'm expressing our support for the proposed project before the Planning Board tonight. This transformative redevelopment located within the city of Newark's MX development zone, just blocks from Penn Station, one of the busiest intermodal mass transportation centers in the Northeast, and one that's also in the process of redevelopment and improvement. In addition to the Penn Station upgrades, the Portal Bridge is being repaired. The Gateway Tunnel project is moving forward. The pedestrian bridge across Route 21 that will link the downtown and the Ironbound is funded and being planned as we speak. All of these things are showing tremendous investment in this area in the city of Newark. And it underscores the need for projects that will contribute to this incredible investment in our future in the Ironbound. The project includes both affordable and market rate housing. It'll increase commercial capabilities in our district through the generation of construction and retail jobs. And it'll generate millions of dollars in additional tax revenues for the city of Newark. Those dollars will help the city invest in expanded public safety initiatives, as well as critical infrastructure repairs and enhancements that this developer has said they will help contribute payments toward. That will contribute to improved quality of life for residents, businesses, and visitors alike. As noted, the developer has hosted multiple community meetings to hear from local stakeholders. I was in attendance at both of those meetings, and they had their ears open and they did listen to what the people had to say. The developers also demonstrated that they are good neighbors through their support for the IBID's clean and safe and quality of life initiatives that benefit everyone in the Ironbound community. The IBID's board of directors, several of whom are also participating in the meeting tonight, is comprised of local business leaders, property owners, and residents. We respect the members of our community who have voiced their concerns. Many are our longtime partners working together in the fight against other initiatives that will harm our environment and quality of life for all.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Baglivo. We heard you loud and clear. Miss Betty Crockett, if you could please turn on your camera and unmute yourself.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be truthful?
And step back 1 second. She hasn't come off of mute and turned her camera on.
Yeah, I'm kind of it's a little bit disjointed here. I need to know who's on and who's off.
Okay, I guess she left. We'll move on to the next one.
She moved up top. She had her hand raised.
Oh, here we go. Ms. Crockett, can you come off of mute and turn your camera on? Is your audio working?
Okay, you're off mute. Now turn your camera on.
Carissa, you might want to bring in a second person while this is working out.
Oh, here she is. All right. Now just unmute yourself. That's the microphone icon.
I did it.
Beautiful. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. My name is Beth Crockett and I live.
Yeah. Before you begin.
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Betty Crockett, and I live at 8 Millington Avenue, Newark, New Jersey. I'm concerned about when you was talking about where the trash is. What would you do with bulk trash? What would tenants do with bulk trash? And then I got a second question. Not really a question, a statement. I belong to the South Ward Environmental Alliance, and I'm an air monitor on the air monitoring board. So the tree thing, 19 trees when it's asked for more, but you can't do it. I don't think the building need to go up if you can't get all those trees in. Now there are concepts. I guess you can have a taproot tree, an evergreen, put into a large container that can grow. But I think more trees is needed. And I'm going to say the same basic things that Janice has said. She's on point with that. So I really don't know, but I know those was my concern, the environmental pieces. So could that ever be addressed? And not I'm not saying that you didn't make a statement saying that you will comply or you could comply. And I really didn't hear you said the minimal, but please comply.
Thank you so very
And
much.
that's the end of my statement.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Miss Helene Freeman.
Yes.
Yes.
Good
So
evening,
Miss
Ms.
Freeman, I'm from 4th Street. I'm an
One sec,
actual
Miss
resident.
Freeman.
Right.
Ms.
Ms.
Freeman.
If I might, we need
Yes,
to.
I solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Well, let me do that. And your name is?
Helene Freeman.
And thank you. And your address for the record?
4th Street. I'm an actual resident in the city of Newark. So unlike the two gentlemen that came from outside, who had something to say about the development, we had the two meetings in Newark. The first meeting, hardly anyone showed up because it was not publicized properly. And the only reason why you had any attendees on the second meeting was because of ICC asking and recruiting people from the actual neighborhood to come through. So once again, this development is unnecessary. And what is necessary would be a senior housing or complete affordable housing, as per the Rutgers University Climb report that states that Newark needs 17,000 units of affordable housing. But affordable for who? You keep talking about we're having we're going to give you nearly 300 affordable units. We need 17,000 affordable units, and that's low. The city has been consistently demolishing public housing and had eliminated 30,000 units by the mid-90s. So substantial units need to be for the community. And you keep talking about the community and the community, but all of these these public access and green spaces are only for the residents. And you're not having the Newark residents. What about the Section 8 mom with 7 kids? How does she fit into this new development? Is she welcome there? You have these high-rise glass fronts. They reflect light in an urban heat island, and then you're cutting down on the amount of trees that are available. The little green mosses that you're going to plant is inadequate. How much more rainwater runoff do you estimate would come off the project? You're saying that it's impermeable surfaces, more than 98%, but yet you're not going to impact the area that already floods. So it's clearly problematic. I have a question, and that's for the engineer. The zoning calls for 10% green open space on site, but it's not accessible to the community. So how does that benefit the community? And it's so important for the community. You're talking about we're not going to provide the 1,400 spaces, parking spaces, people coming from New York are coming to New Jersey for one thing, so that they can have a vehicle so that they can ride around in. They're going to come into Newark, stay a short period of time until their house in West Orange or Livingston is ready, and they're going to move out because they're not going to stay down there. And then you're going to have a constant influx of moving. You're talking about that you have 4 loading docks that aren't going to impact the already overcrowded, problematic streets. Have you ever been on the #1 bus trying to get to Jersey City on Ferry Street? And one car can have a problem and you're sitting there for 20 minutes.
Ms. Freeman, I'm sorry to cut you off. That's your time.
It's not wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Price.
Yes, good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board shall be truthful? I think you have to mute yourself.
Yes.
You have to unmute.
Bottom of your device, there, your screen, there should be a microphone. Hit that icon and that will unmute you.
Mr. Price, while you get that worked out, Madam Chair, we do have Mr. Silva who's ready.
Thank you. So hold on, Mr. Price. You sit right there. We're going to speak with Mr. Silva. Mr. Silva.
Yes, good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jennifer Da Silva, 234 East Kidney Street in Newark.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As a lifelong resident of the East Ward, one thing is clear, that in order for the East Ward to flourish, you need to invest in growth. And this project is doing just that, investing in the Ironbound's growth. This project would create hundreds of construction jobs that would span over several years for our community. Not only that, this project would bring high quality housing, as named. Over 280 of those units would be affordable housing units in support of our community. We know that parking is always a point of concern, but that being said, the project named that it would meet the residents' demands, and 150 of those parking spaces would be for the public, which I imagine would be in great benefit to the local businesses. This project would also lead to an increase in the city tax revenue by several millions, I'm sure. And that money would turn around and come right back into our community, again, investing in our local services. And lastly, this is going to attract new residents to the East Ward, which will provide additional customers to our small businesses, many within walking distances of their new home. So I think that we really need to be investing in our community's growth and be progressive in its development, which is why I believe that this project embodies that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. Mr. Price, I see we're in business, sir.
We're in business.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Sorry
Do you
for the
solemnly swear or
technical-
affirm the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Price. I am a longtime resident of Newark, 198 North 7th Street, Newark, New Jersey. And I just wanted to say that I am a proud member of Labor's Local 3 for over 20 years. And as a result of being, a laborer, my life has improved exponentially. And so I believe I'm in favor of this project because this project can offer the same opportunities that I had to the residents of our city. A thriving Newark benefits us all. This project brings in new investment, which equates to stronger local businesses and a growing economy. More people living here and working here means more folks, working and visiting our city. And a larger tax base to fund public services like parks, public safety, and a number of other public services. This project isn't just a new building. It's about creating a more vibrant and livable Newark for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Price.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, we have a Nancy that don't have a last name as of yet.
Right. Nancy, if you could please turn on your camera and unmute.
Hello.
All right, Nancy's back. Yes,
Good
ma'am.
evening. Do you
Good
solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Nancy Zach, 272 Walnut Street in Newark.
Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. I live in the Ironbound section of Newark, and where I have lived for many years. When we first heard about the project, in the community meeting that was held, people were not happy with the size of it. And when I have shown people the photographs of the proposed project, they have said immediately things, people that I don't even know, we don't want to be Hoboken. We don't want that here. And I've had small business people also say that they don't like it at all because it doesn't fit in with the character of our neighborhood. Jane Jacobs thought characters of city neighborhoods were very important, and the diversity and the walkability of the Ironbound make it an extremely special place. And gigantic buildings are not going to make it a special place. They're going to make it a Hoboken. So I think that there should be more community outreach about this. I think it's too big of a change for us to just go against the master plan, which of course said that there should not be any density increase in the East Ward. That was right in the master plan this year, several times in the page numbers. And we pointed that out at the meetings. And I also agree with all the comments that were made about trees. It's we desperately need them. We need large trees if possible. So I would ask that the board put a pause on this project so that we can actually have more input from the community about the project. I hope that my neighborhood will continue to be the special place that it is now. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zach.
Madam Chair, we have Leah.
Hello.
Good evening, Ms.
Yes.
Leah.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Leah Ives, address 317 Elm Street.
3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. A binding community benefits agreement is essential to assure that this Iberia 2 project directly benefits Newark residents rather than displacing them. Before granting final site approval, will the developer commit to negotiating and signing a legally enforceable CBA that includes affordable housing commitments, local hiring provisions, infrastructure improvements, public green spaces, and protections for small businesses. Without this agreement, how can the community be assured that the project will deliver long-term benefits to current residents? And my second point has to do with the environment. I agree with the other community members' comments that if the trees don't fit in this design, then that's an indication that the design needs to be altered. There are currently some large trees that are on Market Street and on Congress Street, and I would like to know if those will be disturbed during the construction process. As we know, large trees offer far more benefits than small trees. So just demolishing them and replacing them with smaller trees is a great loss to the community. And then finally, in the architectural renderings, there was shown a line of cherry blossom trees. I would like to ask that you commit to planting a variety of native trees and native plants in all landscaping. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Very thoughtful comments.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Shea Coulter. Mr. Coulter, if you could come off of mute and turn your camera on, please.
Yes, Mr. President, how you doing? Shea Coulter, President.
Good evening, Mr. Coulter. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Shea Coulter, 232 Avon Avenue, Newark, New Jersey, United States of America. And Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of the board, my statements are very brief, but they're very pointed. My name is Che John Toussaint Coulter. I live in the city of Newark, New Jersey, also known as Newark City from Trenton, from the Trenton State Capitol. And I'm a member of the Newark community. I'm a union construction worker with Labor's Local 3 of International Labor's Union of North America. I support this project because it helps keep Newark families in Newark and men and women working on construction and building trades jobs. Affordable housing is a major issue in our city. The project commits to 20% affordable housing, meaning that nearly 300 families will have the chance to stay in their community instead of being priced out. This is especially important for working families like mine who want to stay in the city we love. I support this project because it makes sure that people who have built their lives here can afford to stay and be a part of Newark's bright future. And the future, Mr. President and Ms. President and distinguished members of the board, bends toward construction. And we salute this board and also the Newark Municipal Council for considering this honorable project and its scope. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is not on. Chair, do you want to take over?
Sure. Next.
We have Mr. Zhang.
Okay, let's get him sworn in, Mr. Beck.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name, address, and affiliation to this record.
My name is Miles Zhang. I'm a lifelong Newark resident from the James Street Commons Historic District. So I'd like to frame today's question not as is there enough inclusionary zoning in this project, but instead I think the larger question that this board should be asking is the question, what is the maximum amount of affordable units that we can have in a project of this scale before the developer of the project is no longer able to make a profit? So in a small project of say 100 units or 50 units, a 20% set aside is a reasonable amount, 20 units out of 100. But what we're looking at here is a project costing hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's all a good investment in the city of Newark. But my larger question here is the more units you build on an economy of scale, the lower it is, the lower the per cost unit of construction becomes. And with a lower per cost unit of construction in a larger project, the percentage of units that you could set aside as affordable housing could be greater. So I think that a lot of the people speaking in favor of this project talk about the incredible investment in the city of Newark, talk about the large amount of construction jobs, about what this will mean for the Ironbound, and all of those things may be well and true. But the larger question here is how much can we demand from the developer before they're no longer able to make a profit on the project? Of course, I think when the city is in negotiations with the developer, as the developer will always say that we are giving as much as we can or that we cannot give more, or that it's impossible to, or if that the city doesn't approve this project, that nothing will happen on that lot. I think sometimes developers bluff about how little they're able to give the city. But when I look at a project of this scale, this size, this cost, this magnitude of investment, and the way that this project will transform the Ironbound, I think that the city really could be asking more from the developer in this context. And so when we're looking at this project here, the monthly rental cost of a single unit here, the median rent works out to about $2,500 a month, which is about $30,000 a year in rent. By the Housing and Urban Development definition of rent burdened, if you pay 30% of your income in rent, that's the most you can pay before you are rent burdened. So someone paying $30,000 a year in rent to live in this project would have a median expected income of about $100,000 a year. By contrast, the median income of a City of Newark employee is $85,000 a year, $15,000 a year less than this project. And the median income of the Ironbound is under $50,000 a year. And so we're looking at a project that is double the median income of the neighborhood. And I think that as a city, we could be asking a lot more of the developers to give Newark the scale of development and the percentage of affordable units that it really could have in a project of this size. So I would encourage this board not to defer judgment on this project until that community benefits agreement is signed and legally bounded. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Unfortunately or fortunately, some of the things that you brought up are not in the purview of this board. And as we look at the application, there are 0 variances. So, those are those things about how many affordable units that they can put in. That's not for this particular board to decide. But thank you for your comments. Next,
we have Ms. Polani. Sorry.
Yes.
Yes,
my
Mr. Polani, before you begin your testimony, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Could you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Sada Palani. I've lived in the Ironbound. My address is 40 Nickel Street. I've lived in the Ironbound for almost 10 years now. I'm very familiar with the location of this proposed project. I drive by it all the time. I think we in Newark are in desperate need of more housing. Rents have gone up threefold since the time I moved in 2015. And I think any type of housing that we can get, especially projects that have got the 20% set aside, I think will do a great service to the people who are both the residents who are already here, as well as the new people who will come in. So I just wanna lend my support to this project.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chair, we have Helena Veenhouse.
Let's get her sworn in.
Ms.
Yes.
Helena, if you could come off of mute and turn your camera on, please. We'll see if she can get it back together. Chair, we do have Mr. Goldstein ready to
Let's get Mr.
speak.
Goldstein sworn in, Mr. Beck.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Goldstein, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you very much. please state your name and address for the record.
John Goldstein, 39 Madison Street, Newark.
Please continue.
Yes, recognizing Chair Richardson's comments, I do think we need to be honest about the affordable housing component, and it is a zoning piece. It's the IZO is part of our zoning code. The current requirements in the IZO make affordable units unaffordable for Newarkers. And even given the 80% and the 40%, the developers can still set a minimum credit score requirement, which eliminates almost all Newarkers from consideration for these units. I'm very familiar with how it's been working and the thousands of Newarkers that have been on waiting lists and then are not eligible because they don't have a high enough credit score. So, hold on 1 minute, get rid of this noise. So we just need to be honest about that. But I also think that there seems to be a lack of information. There were a number of questions that came back from the city about the water calculations and about the traffic calculations, and there were no traffic engineer testifying today. And in fact, without that information, I don't know how this board can make a decision today. Those are crucial bits of information, and not, well, we'll get you the information. Well, you can't approve this and then get the information. I mean, somehow that kind of escapes me. And I think that the most significant, I went to all the community meetings. The community has been very clear that this project is not in keeping with the current nature of the Ironbound. The Ferry Street corridor is extremely sensitive. It's low rise, it's not high rise. And by approving this project, you are making a statement. And to quote Mr. McDonough, this is a golden opportunity to do something great for the city. Unfortunately, this project as currently proposed does nothing for the vast majority of Newarkers. So I urge you to postpone a decision on this. Let's get a negotiated CBA between the community and the developer, and then let's proceed in a way that provides benefit to all.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Mr. Barry, Mr. Beck, let's get Mr. Barry sworn in.
Mr. Barry, we know you'll swear and you'll tell the truth. Do you solemnly swear and testify? Thank you. Please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Sure, John Barry, planner for the board.
So my question to you, Mr. Barry, if I'm not mistaken, something that Mr. Goldstein brought up, by not having a traffic engineer testify, but by right, this project doesn't even need parking. Is that correct?
Correct. So the project is not required to have parking, number one. And when you have a permitted use, generally speaking, traffic is not a component of what the board can hinge its approval on. You've had testimony from the engineer and representation from council that they've received a traffic review from the city and would work through the technical details and requirements raised therein. In my understanding of how that process works, I'm sure there will be a number of back and forth meetings, mostly focused around making sure that geometry of the driveways is appropriate, sight lines are appropriate, things of that nature. And then any further afield, any traffic signal timing that may need to be adjusted. But those are all technical matters that are really outside of the board's purview regardless. If we were dealing with a parking variance, or if we were at the zoning board and dealing with a use variance where a different level of traffic than what might be anticipated by the use was being contemplated, then we would have extensive traffic testimony and with good reason. But for a permitted use with no parking requirement, it's understood that there may be some technical details that need to be ironed out, but that's the case with virtually every application we handle. And there are always various engineering details that need to be ironed out between time the board acts and the time anyone can go and begin construction.
Thank you, Mr. Barry, for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Let's get the next speaker on. Madam
Chair,
Secretary.
we have Ms. Veenhouse.
Vinhouse. Let's get us sworn in, Mr. Beck.
Yes. Good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Helena Vinhas, and I'm a local business owner for over 42 years at 87 Ferry Street. Is one of the locations. It's a corner very local to the proposed project. So I've been, I know this community very well. I'm also a lifelong resident of the Ironbound. Thank you for the opportunity to express myself, and thank you to the investors for believing in our city and community, moving Newark forward. I believe this project will bring more job opportunities for our local community, especially by hearing that they're planning to hire local construction builders. Also, this will definitely bring more revenue for our city, helping our city grow, allowing us to concentrate on, more policing, security, and also addressing the, garbage and cleanliness of the city. Very happy that there will be public parking of 150 spaces. Owning a business here, it's extremely important and very much needed. I'm always getting the questions of, where can I park? Is there parking? So this will be great for our community. And also very happy that they're taking, there will be affordable housing of 280 units, allowing our local community to stay and live in this beautiful city and a beautiful building that is proposed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next.
We have a representative from, she just left. Where'd she go? Oh, New Jersey Appleseed, Renee. There we go.
Sorry. Crap. Okay.
There she is. Oh, she left again.
I'm sorry. It's flickering on and off.
There you go. Let's get us sworn in, Mr. Beck.
I believe Ms. Steinhagen is an attorney, and so I don't need to swear her, but please state your name and address for the record.
Renee Steinhagen on New Jersey Appleseed, and we have a project called Plan Newark. I'm had myself prepared for sort of cross-examination questions, so I'm going to just make some points, not taking a position.
If I might just interrupt for half a second, Ms. Steinhagen, we're not going to look to do any cross-examination.
No, I understand that.
Yeah, so this will just be a 3-minute open opportunity.
I understand. I'm going to turn my questions into points and hopefully limit them to 3. I understand what's going on here is that the board is taking the position that they don't really have a choice, and because there are no variances being asked. And I'm just going to raise 3 issues, questioning whether there should be some variances here. The first has to do with the impervious lot coverage. The staff notes that there is a 98% impervious coverage, and the redevelopment plan on page 48 sets forth impervious coverage only for projects 5,000 feet or less. So given that the redevelopment plan is silent on impervious coverage for projects that are over 5,000 feet, there's an issue of whether the Newark's current plans, zoning for impervious coverage apply. And it's my understanding that in both 2015 and in 2023, Newark adopted impervious lot coverage to be no more than 75% for all high-rise multi-unit buildings that are greater than 5,000 square feet. So I'm just asking why there's been a finding that the board does not, that the applicant does not have to comply with the 75% impervious coverage. Another point has to do with frontage setback. The staff report notes that this coverage, the frontage setback is 0, because they say that's the prevailing coverage setback for the two buildings on the side on the same block. But the staff report, the redevelopment plan makes very clear on page 32 that when a block has no existing development to serve as the reference for the required setback, the front yard setback shall be 6 feet. So again, I'm asking why this project, which has no other buildings on the block, why the setback in the frontage is not 6 feet as opposed to 0. The other issue that many people are concerned about are the trees, but I just would like to go back to, this is not so discretionary. Page 44 on the redevelopment plan makes very clear that modification of these standards requires extraordinary hardship in the implementation of the standards. And I don't believe that Mr. Scott's testimony has laid forth enough factual predicates to say that there would be an extraordinary hardship not to require the full number of trees that the redevelopment project does require. So I will just make those 3 points and ask that the board look further into it and therefore delay their decision. The community is not saying they do not want development. They are not saying they do not want a building there. What they are noticing, what they are saying
sorry to
is,
cut you off, but that's your time.
it's high density is what they're opposing.
Thank you.
Chair, we have Mr. Fish. Mr. Fish, if you could just come off of mute and turn your camera on. Okay, we also do have Ms. Jones. Ms. Jones, if you can come off mute and turn your camera on. There we go.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give shall be truthful?
Donna Jones, work address 317 Elm Street. I simply wanted to read into the record a collaborative community letter that was submitted with regard to the proposed development. This letter is written on behalf of the residents of Newark and supporting signatories to express our urgent concerns regarding the upcoming vote of the Central Planning Board for the final site approval of the Iberia 2 Realty Urban Renewal LLC on tonight. As currently proposed, the Iberia 2 development does not adequately reflect the needs and priorities of our community and risk exacerbating challenges related to affordability, displacement, flooding, congestion, and public infrastructure strain. Furthermore, it does not comply with the principles of equitable growth as set forth by the Equitable Growth Advisory Commission. To ensure that development in Newark aligns with the well-being of its residents, we strongly urge the City of Newark to delay the final approval of this particular project, for the board to pause it until there is meaningful community engagement and we enter into a binding community benefits agreement that establishes a shared vision between the community and the developer. As dedicated community partners, we strongly urge the City of Newark's administration to prioritize the following key issues, key areas of community collaboration. One is ensuring true affordability. The City of Newark's affordability standards must align with the realities of its residents. Currently, affordability criteria are based on the HUD Metro Fair market rent area, which assumes an average AMI of $115,000, far above Newark's median income of about $37,476. To create true inclusive development, we urge the integration of more deeply affordable units at about 30% AMI to reflect the economic needs of the Newark residents and prevent displacement. And there should be indication that the City of Newark has the right to extend that affordability. Two is establishing a community benefits agreement prior to project approval. A collaborative agreement between the developer and the community is essential to ensure development is implemented with residents' best interest at heart. This agreement should include assessment of the negative impacts of the project and solidify a commitment to actually address and remedy said impacts. Assessment of the impact of the payment in lieu of taxes on the Newark Public School District, that loss of appropriate tax revenue. Commitments to appropriate level of green space, trees, and seating areas that foster community gathering and environmental sustainability. Traffic and pedestrian safety enhancements to improve mobility and public safety. Ensuring that the Central Planning Board approval is conditioned upon proactive solutions to sewage and infrastructure concerns. Reevaluating the overall size of the project. The proposal significantly increases building heights from 5 to 30 stories on lot 80, from 12 to 30 stories on lot 1. Yet has been limited community discussion on this shift. Upsizing is inconsistent with the city's master plan and was executed without meaningful community engagement, thus violating equitable development principles and practices. Residents deserve a transparent and inclusive decision-making process before such dramatic zoning modifications are approved.
Ms.
98%.
Jones, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's your time.
Yep, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Mr. Fish, are you ready to come off of mute and turn your camera on, please? If not, we'll move. No, Mr. Fish, okay. We next have Natasha B.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Natasha Bennett, 425 South 14th Street. Good evening, everybody. I am a local construction worker. I'm a proud member of Laborers Local 3, and I support this project because it's going to create good career opportunities for Newark residents like myself and others. Our community needs access to stable, good-paying jobs. This project will provide good construction jobs with fair wages. These jobs give people a chance to build a career to support their families and be able to afford to stay in Newark. Real jobs for real Newarkers. Opportunities, open doors, provide benefits, offer a pathway to financial stability. I support this project because it invests in our people, our community, and our future. Thank you.
No, thank you. Madam Secretary.
We have Ms. Tanisha Garner.
Yes, speaking.
Turn your camera
on. My camera's not working right now.
Okay.
All right. Do you solemnly swear or testify the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Tanisha Garner, 55 Oxford Street.
You have 3 minutes to speak.
Oh, thank you. Hi, my name is Tanisha Garner. I'm the president of Homes for All Newark. Just because the Supreme Court states that it's a good project for Randolph, it doesn't mean it's a good project for our community. Do they live in the Ironbound, where our river is contaminated with Agent Orange and continuous bad smells that we smell every day? Our transit system has many challenges, especially the fare increase that has been increased to perpetuity. With existing developments that are not fully occupied and with rents and property taxes on the rise, many people are losing jobs. If the developer rents are high, how can people afford it? You are just building just to build. So I'm requesting that this project be tabled so we can have a meaningful, sound, and beneficial negotiation between the community and the developer. As it was stated before, we had 2 community meetings, and a lot of the issues that we asked for, especially the prices of the rent and also the zoning. Why did the city council pass and change the zoning from 12 stories to 30 stories to be able for this developer to come in and build 30 stories in a community that's already have low high rises? It's going to change the fabric of our community and especially put more pressure on the infrastructure such as Newark Energy and PVSC. Because through PVSC, we have a lot of bad smells, and especially a lot of the chemical factories that we have here is going to get more overburdened. So I'm just asking that as a community that we could keep having this conversation to make sure, especially how we did for the MX3, where it was 20 stories and we got it down to 12. So why can't we do the same thing for this project? Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary?
We have JV.
Yeah. Hi, JV Valladolid. I swear this testimony is true.
Hold on. Let Mr. Beck do that. Mr. Beck?
Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give shall be truthful?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
JV Valladolid, 380 Mount Prospect, Newark, New Jersey. I'm also a member of the Newark Environmental Commission, an appointed member for several years now. I have a question for the engineer, which is if there has been an environmental preliminary assessment or site investigation done. Second question for the engineer is what is the project's impact, if any, on groundwater? And the third is if there's any soil or other contamination that needs to be addressed, and if so, if we can view those results and plans. Beyond that, I do have a comment and question. I do notice that there are several folks who are in favor of this project, but I also notice that historically it tends to be union members that are in favor of this project. I find it really disheartening to see that folks who are encouraged to testify and say that they are in favor often will not be able to afford to live in this project either. The rent prices of this project not exceeding over the 20% IZO will be incredibly difficult for our local community to be able to afford. It leads to displacement. The high rent prices bleed out through the neighborhood and lead to housing injustices in our community. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that a community benefits agreement, as we've heard all night, is something that is essential to this project, something that directly benefits the Newark community rather than displacing us. Before granting a final site approval, which is why a lot of folks are asking for this decision to be delayed, there should be a commitment from the developer to negotiating and signing a legally enforceable community benefits agreement, something that includes extended affordable housing commitments, infrastructure improvements, actually accessible green space, because I do keep hearing that this will be accessible, but only for the folks who are able to pay the high rent prices to live here. And protections for small businesses. I did hear that some businesses are in support of this project, but in the community, we often hear that the small businesses are concerned about it. So we would want to hear more about what are the community benefits if something like this were to pass. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for your comments and your questions and concerns.
Will the engineer be able to answer any of them?
Hold on.
No.
Madam Secretary?
We have James S.
Hello, yeah. Sorry, I cannot turn on my camera right now.
Let's get him sworn.
Mr. James S., could you please state your full name and address for the record?
Yeah, James Sinclair, 1180 Raymond Boulevard, Newark, New Jersey.
Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board should be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
All right, thank you. I'm concerned with how this building interacts with the street and the community, especially with the many decisions made on how the ground floor is designed which do not comply with the requirements. So they're required to provide a 10% public space, and they're not doing it. The Ironbound needs the space. Now, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to provide Ironbound residents with better connectivity that doesn't involve walking on Market or Ferry. There should be a link between Jefferson and Congress by extending Downing Street for pedestrians. Instead, what they're doing is building a permanent wall of parking, which is a prohibited ground floor use. In addition, they're not even building a curb ramp with crosswalk at the intersection of Downing, even though under state law, there is a crosswalk there. As many noted multiple times, 35 trees are required, but just 19 are being provided. That's not enough, and there's a reason Newark requires it. It's very hot in Newark, and they would be able to accommodate that number of trees if they met the public space requirement and provided a pedestrian path across the property. Second, the loading and trash plan relies on degrading the sidewalk experience for non-residents. Wheeling the trash out is not good, as that truck will be blocking the travel lane for an extended period because a building of this size generates a lot of trash. Instead, What they should do is redesign the ground floor so that the truck goes inside the building to pick it up, so that the work is not happening on the public street multiple times a week. Likewise, they're building 4 separate loading docks that add additional driveways across the sidewalk and trucks driving across the sidewalk. This is unsafe. You don't want random residents backing up a U-Haul they've never used before across the sidewalk every day when they move in and out. Again, this loading should happen entirely inside the building. There's no reason to add additional driveways. The garage should be designed so cars and trucks can drive in, do all the loading and unloading they need to do inside the property, and then drive out the other side. That's the standard for new apartments in other cities, and Newark shouldn't be getting less. To summarize this, if they're being allowed to build a prohibited ground floor use, which is the garage, then all trash services and loading should be inside. Finally, for the garage, the Congress Street entrance is way too close to the corner. If just 2 cars going east on Congress Street are waiting to turn onto Market, which happens every single day, they will block the entrance. That means drivers that want to enter the garage by turning left will stop and wait. That's going to block Congress. That's going to back up onto Market Street and create more congestion that could block up all the way to Penn Station, especially at rush hour. The traffic engineer wasn't brought to this meeting, and I'm wondering if that's why. It's a really terrible design. And on a last note on that, the curb ramp shown for Jefferson and Market does not meet the new ProWag requirements. So unfortunately, the building is not doing a good job meeting new federal standards on that. So I do ask the board to reject this application until these issues are addressed. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments and concerns. Madam Secretary.
Here we have Mr. Costa.
Good evening, Mr. Costa. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Jack Costa, and I am the president of the Portuguese Sport Club on Prospect Street. We have been in the neighborhood since 1921. And have been the location where much of the community gets together. On behalf of the organization, I do want to express that we strongly support the building at this location. Why do we do it? It does represent a much needed improvement in our neighborhood. It will energize the area. It will bring modern infrastructure, better lighting, safer pedestrian access. And also by attracting more residents and visitors, it will also stimulate local businesses and enhance the overall vibrancy of our community. As an historic organization dedicated to serving the community, we believe that this project will create a safer, more inviting environment to all, ensuring a brighter future for the Ironbound while preserving its cultural identity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Madam Secretary.
Mr. Wiley.
My name is Beck.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Daniel Joseph Wiley. Address is 74 Christie Street, lifelong Newark resident. I do want to say one thing. I also support that something should go at this site. Being a lifelong Newark resident, also most of my years, over 30 years in Ironbound, I've walked down Market Street thousands of times from Penn Station. From a teenager till now, understanding that that site has been underused, undervalued for a very long time. So something does need to go there. But what I do also want to say is I went to the community meetings, especially the last one. I was at the Portuguese Sports Club, and I noticed, and I was one of the folks that was there that also believes that this isn't the right project for that site based on what is being proposed. And what's being proposed is 30 stories when community members have agreed to 12 stories in the past. So the question from the community is, why do we need to go up to 30 stories? And from our perspective, what it seems like is this is just nothing but greed. Somebody before said that there's nowhere else to build in the state of New Jersey, but yet we keep building it in the city of Newark. But at the same time, we're building projects that are way beyond the scope of what we are actually accepting as community members. And because of that, I want to say that we should postpone voting on this tonight. And this should come back to a community meeting because there are tons of questions that haven't been answered. and questions that were brought up at these community meetings that weren't answered. I do have 3 of them here, and I just want to ask them because, you know, I know nobody can answer them, but I just want to put them on the record. So the first one is, you know, how do we rationalize that, you know, 26 and 30 stories is necessary in a low scale community? Ironbound traditionally has been 4 to 5 stories. I mean, anywhere you go, you know, you can see that we're not building higher than that. The other one is that there was a project that was just approved pre-pandemic that was 12 stories, and when zoning was changed to MX3, which also seemed like spot zoning too, just to put that out there, on McCorder Street. And that project there was, you know, closer to Penn Station. So this seems like a contradiction of planning. Is this even good planning principles would be the question. Other than that, I would just say yes. I would please ask the board, let's bring this back to a community meeting. A community benefits agreement should be on the table that actually reflects what Ironbound, and not just Ironbound, Newark residents want, because this is a section of the city that, you know, everyone should be able to enjoy. And again, somebody that's been in Ironbound for the majority of my life, I agree something needs to be here, but this doesn't seem like a project that's going to benefit folks that are existing here now. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chair, we have Miss Rosanna Eve.
Okay, let's get this sworn in.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, I'm Rosanna Eve, and I live on 29 Cortland Street in Newark. So I'm opposed to this project. I would like the board to consider, like, really postpone this decision today for many reasons. Some of them are already stated by the rest of the community members, but I'm gonna mention the fact of the traffic. I suffer personally with the traffic. The congestion is gonna be really crazy from the beginning. Just the construction is gonna create a lot of traffic. The other issue is the same, you know, the community members cannot afford those development, including myself. I work for Ironbound Community Corporation. We don't get, you know, the income to afford any of those units. And the other one is that I haven't heard anything in regards to community, what the community can gain from this. Like, what else? I don't see anything. Those developments are just going to be available for people from New York, basically, that has the income and can afford that. But the regular community members that we see, that live in the Newark area, they just getting the minimum pay. They're not going to be able to afford that. So I definitely think that you guys need to consider that and have a conversation and allow more community members to join these meetings, to, you know, so you guys can hear what the community says. I know if we have more opportunities for people to join, you guys are going to hear that not everybody agreed to have this development in the Ironbound. Not everybody. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Chair, we have Miss Applewhite.
Okay, let's get a sworn in, Mr. Beck.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Hazel Applewhite, CEO for Ironbound Community Corporation. Work address 317 Elm Street, Newark, New Jersey. Am I good to continue?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, you know, to the board for having me. Also, thanks for the community for showing up, right, and voicing their concerns. This project, Ironbound Community Corporation, is requesting for the project to be voted down or delayed to allow further discussion with community. Project as is will transform the community in the most negative possible way, lead to gentrification, and displacement for long-term residents. I've heard residents on this call who have actually said, you know, rents has gone up throughout the last 5 years. With a project like this, rents are going to continue to go up because we have yet to be told what the market rate rent is actually going to be. And once this development puts market rate rent on their project, then all projects surrounding it, or even your small 3 families, are going to increase their rent, and that's going to lead to displacement. And I need the residents to understand this. No matter what anyone tells you, you're not going to be able to afford to live in the Ironbound. We've seen it happen in Brooklyn. We've seen it happen in Jersey City. We've seen it happen in Hoboken. I do agree that something needs to be done on the project. Something needs to be built, but not at this magnitude. We've heard over and over again that community members have said that there was not enough community engagement in those community meetings. When you call for a community meeting and put a flyer out a week before on social media, who's really going to show up? I mean, what I would recommend the developers do is actually work with organizers that know how to bring community together, so you can actually have a community meeting with the full community there. That's one recommendation I have for these developers. Sending out a flyer on social media is not community engagement. The Ironbound is a heat island. It has the heat island effects. You know, this project is going to generate more rainwater runoff. It's going to lead to more high-rise projects. And again, just more market rate rent. So then I asked, right, who's this project really for? And I'm not saying that that site should not have a project, but it should not have this project. This project breeds a developer's vision and a developer's greed. It does not reflect the vision of the community, in which you're hearing over and over again. Approval of this project will continue to privilege the developers over the public. I'm going to rest here, and I'm hoping that the board has actually heard what the community has to say. And before I end, I'm going to talk about that community benefits
Sorry,
agreement.
Ms. Applewhite, but that's your time.
That's your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Secretary.
Chair, we have Jay.
Okay, let's get him sworn in, Mr. Beck.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board should be truthful?
Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. It's JAI.E.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board shall be truthful? Mr. J.
Go to the next.
Yes.
Public.
Okay, we have Empress segment.
Greetings.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear to testify that
Can you turn the camera on?
I'm sorry, I got muted. You solemnly swear to testify that the testimony you're going to give is truthful?
I affirm.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Well, it's Empress Sekhmet, also known as Munira El Boumani, longtime advocate of Newark, also a former craft construction laborer of Local 55. And I just want to say, during my career as a craft construction laborer, I haven't seen one development that will keep local contractors, local Newarkers, as well as union members working consistently in the city of Newark. I want to also say that I support Ironbound residents for whatever they agree on this project, because they should be the ones who's partaking in the revitalization of what's taking place in their neighborhood, in their community. And I just want to also say that we want developments without displacement. And as a Newarker, lifetime Newarker, I just want to say that, I haven't seen any developments that would have Newarkers working. We have a very high unemployment rate. If you hear the council meetings, you hear Tillman and myself, Donna Jackson, and a couple of us, Deborah Salters, speak about the unemployment rate, as well as contractors and, the tax abatements are not being adhered to. Every council meeting, I know you all attend and listen to those council meetings and hearing us crying out about the tax abatements not being adhered to, as well as the jobs and local contract and local hiring. So that's a serious issue. We also stress about the issue where most of these projects do not have community benefits agreements attached to them. And I don't think a community benefits agreement should have just particulars, individuals who are, bedfellows with politicians and contractors and, businesses within that community or within that neighborhood where the building is taking place. I think it should be community benefits agreements that is suitable to the whole of Newark, because it's even though we are in our own prospective wards, we are all Newarkers. So and also community benefits should be a binding contract. If you go against a community benefits agreement, it should be pulled just like a tax abatement. So if you don't adhere to the community benefits agreement, your development should be stopped.
Sorry to
Like
interrupt, Miss Empress. That's your time.
So to close it up, I want to also talk about
Miss Empress, that's your time.
issues
That's your
about
time.
the
You got 3 minutes.
firefighters. Ladders
you.
don't go up to 2.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Cohen, Chair.
Okay, let's get them sworn in.
Yes, good evening. Do you solemnly swear or testify the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the
Sure. Arnold Cohen, 167 New York Avenue, lifelong resident of the city of Newark. There should not be a final vote on this project until several areas that are up in the air have definitive answers. One is that they're saying that they can only do 6% open space when the city law requires 10% open space. Open space is critical so that the community is able to be able to enjoy the land that's there, to have open space, to have places where people can gather. And the same thing is true with trees. As was stated before, there's a heat island. There's a tremendous lack of trees in the Ironbound section of Newark. There's whole blocks with no trees. None of that, which is the fault of this particular developer, but it's the overall cumulative effect that it has upon the city, which makes trees even more desperate. If they do not have the land there, this is a huge lot that goes all the way out to Ferry Street. They're making a tremendous amount of money off of this. They can buy up land adjacent to their project to be able to create more open space, to create more land for more trees. They have the ability to do that. This project is going to lead to gentrification. Although they're not displacing anybody on this land, what we see is rents in the city of Newark doubling as a result of all the market rate new development that's happening in the city. More, as we see in Jersey City, more new development leads to higher rents. And we're going to look back in the future at some point. We're going to say this is the first nail in the coffin of Newark and the area of Ironbound towards gentrification, because if this project is allowed to move forward. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're muted.
Thank you. We have Drew.
Drew Curtis.
Good evening, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
So my name is Drew Curtis. I reside at 142 Union Street in Newark.
Floor is yours. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Appreciate you. Good to see some familiar faces on here. And one thing that I think we can all agree on, and most of the folks on this call can agree on, is we want to see Newark thrive, and get better. But and I think a lot of other folks on here would agree that we want to see Newark thrive for the current residents of Newark. This project, as currently construed, is not going to do that too. As others have said, it's going to put immense pressures of gentrification and displacement here. Despite what some people say, just building housing on its own is not going to drive down rents. The exact opposite happens everywhere, as we've seen time and time again. And I hear what our union brothers and sisters said earlier, that they want to see jobs come out too, but they can still get those jobs if something's built that the community agrees with and has more affordability too. In fact, they'd probably be able to live there too. At the rents that will be charged in most of these buildings, folks won't be able to live in, the average Newarker too. Someone mentioned the crime report earlier and where the gap is on affordability, and it's below what the inclusionary zoning ordinance provides. In addition, folks have mentioned the environmental justice concerns on this site. And I just want to point out that this project is not consistent with the master plan. The master plan calls for not approving any more projects in Ironbound until there is a climate plan in place too. So on that grounds alone, this project should be denied. But I think we need to have real conversations. And yeah, the developer had a couple community meetings, but it's not just about having those community meetings and just checking a box that a meeting happened. It's about real dialogue, sitting down at the table, have real negotiations, and come to a binding community benefits agreement too, with residents directly, with the community directly, not something that's with the city, but with actual residents too. So please, tonight, you don't have to vote to approve. Don't do that. Send this project back to the community and let's have some real conversations with the developer to get something that works for everybody. And also ensure that there's a climate resiliency plan in place as well. So thank you
so
very much.
Mr. Curtis.
Have a great night.
Thank you, sir.
Here we have Mr. Abdul.
Let's get a sworn in, Mr. Beck.
Yes, good evening. Do you solemnly swear testimony about to give shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Abdul Rahman Khan. My work address is 833 McCarter Highway in Newark. I'm a law professor at Seton Hall Law School. I work with the Center for Social Justice, and I'm also with the New Jersey Legal Design Lab. As a law professor and an attorney, I think about process. There's a couple of things I really want us to frame and think about. First, the process of being able to have real negotiation. As Drew just mentioned, it's not just about having a meeting. It's actually being able to cross-examine experts. It's being able to have a binding community benefits agreement. It's being able to negotiate in these spaces. The community has repeatedly stated that they're not opposed to development, particularly in this space. but what matters is how we go about these processes. There are open questions as to whether or not a variance should be issued, as stated by a number of folks, including Renee Steinhagen. Whether or not a variance relating to the impervious lot coverage applies here, whether or not the frontage setback is in fact at 0, whether or not the trees modification, which is 16 short from the requirement because of a lack of meeting the 10% public space requirement, is indeed something that this board should agree with. Whether or not, as another individual mentioned, parking being prohibited on the ground floor, which impacts trash and loading on the inside, and how that affects the ability for a traffic engineer to be here and be cross-examined by a community, because there is a prohibition on the parking use. There are also open questions about environmental impact and the climate plan per the master plan. So undoubtedly, there are open questions about laws that have been pushed by the community, and it's key that the developer bears the burden of proving these open questions. Indeed, some of these standards, as Renee mentioned, have an extraordinary standard, literally extraordinary. So in addition to meaningful opportunity and community input, it's really about democratic participation, civic engagement, recognizing that folks are not opposed to development. In fact, it seems across the board, folks are in favor of moving forward, having development, but also having meaningful input. It's key that we honor the community's vision for development, which doesn't just support economic growth for some, but social and communal harmony for everyone. I think it makes sense based upon these issues with the process, not just with how tonight's meeting has gone and the inability for folks to cross-examine experts, but also in how community meetings took place and the lack of following of variances based upon community movements over
Sorry to interrupt,
that
Mr.
will be
Khan.
postponed. Thank you so
Finish
much.
your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chair, we have Miss Sheila Montague.
Okay, let's get us sworn in.
You solemnly swear affirm the testimony about to give this board should be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sheila Montague. My address is 481 South 13th Street in the city of Newark.
Floor is yours. You have 3 minutes to speak.
I want to say that I reiterate the sentiment shared tonight as it related to gentrification, also as it related to displacement. So I'm not going to say any more to those issues because I believe that they were well covered. I do want to address a point that I heard Manira Bomani, her time got cut off on, and that's to the point of safety. And I want to just hit on 3 aspects of that. When a development comes up this high, right? There's the vertical smoke and migration issue that speaks to the safety issue of people not being able to get out in a very safe way because of the construct being so tall. Another issue is that the wiring and mechanisms that go into building a building that tall in terms of plumbing, different things, anything can happen. And again, it poses a huge safety issue. And the last thing I want to say as it pertains to safety, which is very important, is that the ability for firefighters to be able to handle a fire that could potentially break out in that area as well. We are aware that we've had a situation where we have lost the lives of firefighters here in the city of Newark, and we want to make sure that the residents of this potential building would be safe as well as our firefighters. And it's just not safe to put that type of construct in that particular area. And I think to go forward with any plans for it would be totally disrespectful to the quality of life issues to the residents who already live there. And as stated tonight, just the environmental issues that exist. And I think I heard someone mention Agent Orange. Like, that's just illogical
to form a decision to say, okay, we're just going to go forward with it anyway. It is my suggestion on this evening, because of the safety issues, because of the displacement issues, because of the environmental issues and everything else that was mentioned tonight, that this project is just discontinued from moving forward. Thank you, and I appreciate the time to share my thoughts.
Thank you. Madam Secretary? You're muted.
Apologies. We have Mr. Victor Vinhas.
Okay, let's get him on. Sworn in, Mr. Beck.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give this board should be truthful?
You're muted, sir.
No, I'm not.
No, not you, Mr. Vinhas.
Oh, thank you. It's getting late.
Mr. Vinhas, you have to take yourself off mute.
Mr. Vinhas.
Try it again. Try it again. You are still
Another
muted.
witness?
Oh,
Can
there
you
you
hear
go.
me?
Got you now.
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Vinhas. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Victor Vinhas, 87 Ferry Street. I own a small business. My family and I have been running this business since 1981. And we love the Ironbound. We love Newark. My business is very close to the proposed project. And right now, it is very dark, especially in the wintertime. The area is abandoned. It's infested with needles from drug addicts, and it's just very depressing. So I am in favor of the project. Please start it immediately because we need some life in that area. The way it is now, it's no good. Unfortunately, there's been issues with crime, and that's sort of a getaway for the bad guy because there's no surveillance, there's nothing there. So I would like to congratulate the commissioner, the architect, on the design of the towers, on the materials. I think they're absolutely beautiful, and they've done an excellent job based on what I've seen. I do understand with any project, it's not perfect. You can't please everything or everybody, or even in this case with the trees. There's got to be some type of balance. So there's got to be a compromise, but I think it's going in the right direction. I think they have a good team. I like the presentation. I've been to the 2 meetings in Sport Club Portuguese, and I think they have good intentions. Also, congratulations to the developers for having the courage, the vision to come into our neighborhood and to propose this project. They could have gone to another neighborhood. They could have gone to another town, but they see potential in the Ironbound. So congratulations to them. I don't consider it greed. It's their money. It's their risk. There's no guarantees they're going to make money on this project. They can also start the project and go bankrupt. That's one thing I would like the city to make sure they have the funding to be able to start and complete the project. Because currently, I think there's a glass building that was started. I don't know the exact location, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows where it's at. And I think the company went bankrupt, and now it's just an eyesore. So I just want to make sure that once they get involved, that the city checks or secures a bond. So once they put the first shovel in the ground, they're able to complete the project, and it just doesn't become an abandoned eyesore to the city. Also, another thing that I did not hear any talk about is
So sorry to interrupt, Mr. Vinhas, but that's your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Chair, we have Mr. JAI.E.
Okay, let's go for it again.
Jamie Machado, 1121 Bristol Road, Mountainside.
Thank you. Let's do that over again. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be truthful?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jamie Machado, 1121 Bristol Road, Mountainside. So I was born and raised down Neck. My mother still lives there. Many family members and friends still live there. And I support this project, and I support it for a few reasons. As the gentleman said earlier, for over 25 years, we've been looking at a little eyesore there, a place that just accumulates trash. And you have chest builders that's willing to come in and do the right thing and put up this big, beautiful building. I'm also a proud member of Labor's Local 3. And the local hire requirements on this project, hopefully many members from Local 3 who are Newark residents will have the opportunity to go and work on this project and actually make a living wage, unlike some of the other projects that are going around in this city that don't pay its workers a living wage. Also, let's look around the neighborhood. Other than Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, and Walgreens, look at all the other businesses, the restaurants, the bakeries, the shops, the fish markets, the 3 other pharmacies in the neighborhood. They're all small mom and pop businesses who are going to benefit once these residents move in. You know, you're going to have construction workers there who are going to go into the neighborhood and spend our hard-earned money in that neighborhood. And I support this project, and I hope that everyone else does too. I hope that the board, approves the project and moves it forward, because we need more projects like this that are going to pay Newark residents a living wage, and that are going to have also affordable housing, which is a benefit for the community. Thank you.
No, thank you, sir. Madam Secretary.
Yeah, Tim Williams.
Let's get him sworn in, Mr. Beck.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Could you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Timothy Williams. I live in 200 Overturner Boulevard, Newark, New Jersey.
Floor is yours. You have 3 minutes to speak, sir.
Thank you. I live in Newark. I'm a part of the Newark community. I'm a proud member of Local 3. I support this project because it brings life to a space that is empty, currently empty. Right now, there's a lot of, right now, this lot is doing nothing for Newark, and this project will bring a lot of beautiful homes, businesses, and opportunities to people like me that live in the community. Revitalization means turning unused spaces into places where people can live, work, and thrive. I support this project, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
Victor, I don't want to chop up his last name. Victor G.
Good evening. Peace and blessings, everybody. Thank you. Victor Gavilanes.
Thank you, Mr. Gavilanes. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the
Yes, Victor Gavilanes, 515 Mount Prospect, North Ward, Homes for All member. So I'll be brief. I'm one who always supports something nice and new in communities. But I have to be realistic in seeing how things are. This project, it looks beautiful, but it leaves me with so much, it leaves me nervous thinking about the environmental issues it may create. Just knowing about the lack of trees that are being developed. Most of these developers coming into the city don't consider really putting up new trees and putting up significant amount of trees. The Ironbound has a proposed sludge in the factory that's going to come up. Well, it's probably going to come up, and there's going to be a need for more trees in that area. Just the heat island effect down there is unbearable. The bad smells in the area is unbearable. So, just the more clean air and the more opportunities to to bring benefit to the environment is the most important thing. So developing something that doesn't provide something for the environment is like it's kind of ass backwards. I'm sorry for using that kind of language. Another thing is thinking about the height of the development. Listen, the Ironbound has been for decades low-level housing. It's had a certain type of skyline. You're able to see the New York skyline. You're able to see things from a certain angle. You're able to see Penn Station from a certain distance. Building up this building is going to change all of that. It's going to open the gateway for more sky rises to come into the neighborhood. It's already congested. There's already so much double parking that happens in that area without the development there. And just imagine the craziness that's going to happen, the traffic that's going to happen during construction while this building is there. It's just going to be so much accidents. I could just see it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even going to begin to get into that part. It's so much already that everybody's already talked about with that. Aside from that, listen, I support a lot of the union folks that are here in support of this. But guys, I want you to think consciously, man. You know what I'm saying? Don't think about your pockets. You know what I'm saying? Be realistic. Think about the families that are going to be impacted here. You know what I'm saying? This is not about your own self. You know what I'm saying? It's, you know, you have a ex-union person up here telling yourself it's not going to benefit everybody. It's not going to benefit Newark is the way you think it is. So, you know, be realistic. You know what I'm saying? Think about, you know what I'm saying? Be conscious. Think with your heart, not with your pocket. And that's all I got to say. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Chair, we have Mr. Bernardo.
Okay, let's get him sworn in.
Good evening, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board shall be truthful?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Bernardo, 643-645 Mount Prospect Avenue. I operate a business out of Mount Prospect Avenue. I manage several special improvement districts in northern New Jersey, and I work in a number of downtown areas, including providing service and work in the Ironbound area. So, full disclosure, I am a little bit biased because, of course, I would love to see this project move forward, but I do want to highlight a few things. This property is less than 1,500 feet away from one of the busiest train stations, not just in the United States, in North America. And the fact that we can have a project on the table that meets the affordable housing requirement at a high level in New Jersey and have very little relief needed for the project is actually pretty remarkable. I want to highlight once again, I thought John McDonough did a wonderful job tonight giving an overview of this project. The fact that we have the opportunity to maximize this area so close to the train station is incredibly important. Those are the types of actions taken by this board as well as other leaders. It's those actions that are going to help build wealth and further development throughout the city. And so I would encourage all of us strongly to embrace the fact that this is a very special property. We only have so many parcels around this train station. If we lose the ability to maximize that, we're losing out on a big opportunity. Also, I just want to point out, there is a business improvement district that surrounds this area. This business improvement district needs more values. It needs more valuable property to increase its own ability to provide service. So as we develop this property, as we make this property more valuable, we're actually increasing the ability for the district to provide all the important quality of life activities that we all know are important. Cleaning, public safety, the marketing and communications as well, very important. But the truth is, the district needs further investment, and you have to take it in the important places where it's needed. And this is certainly an important parcel. So I would encourage the board to look favorably on this application. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Madam Secretary.
Lastly, Chair, we have Shivani Hurry.
Okay, this will be the last speaker.
Good evening. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be truthful?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Shivani Hurry, 317 Elm Street.
The floor is yours. Can you turn your camera on?
I am trying, and I can't, and I also kind of don't want to because I'm super, super tired.
No worries.
I will make my statement. Thank you. I'll make my statement short and brief because I know it's been a long night. And I thank everyone for allowing us all to speak tonight and give our thoughts and input. I have heard all night that developers are going to support small businesses for this project. They're going to provide jobs, opportunities with a medical clinic. And, this is all great, but I want to emphasize that I've only heard all words tonight. I have not heard anything else but words. And I think it's only fair as a community that we have a legally binding agreement between the developer and the community before this project is finalized. I have heard all night, and I want to emphasize by other community members that we are not against development, but I am against irresponsible development, which is exactly what this project is. And I do agree that something needs to go on this property, but I don't think this is it, right? I don't think that this is the responsible development for the community. It is going to be unaffordable for the actual community members present. Most of us make $38,000 a year. This project is not reflective of what the community actually makes. And therefore, I do see a trickle down of displacement along with so many other things that happens after displacement. So I really want to urge that we have a community benefits agreement before this project is finalized. I do think it's fair. Again, I've heard nothing but words and promises on this call, which is great. I appreciate it. But I think that it's, again, fair that we have a legally binding agreement to ensure that this is, in fact, for the community. And also, I will end with we have had community benefit. We have had community meetings. I appreciate that. But to be clear, the second one that we had was only because of ICC's work. Stamping a flyer right online and saying, well, I'm going to have a community meeting is not a community meeting. So I have not seen that from the developer where they've had a true meaningful output and they have only had that as a result of a community organization such as ICC coming out and helping them and supporting them with that process. So I would like to see the developer actually have a meaningful discussion and an agreement between the developer and the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that was the last person who wanted to speak tonight.
Yes.
Mr. Commissioner, you have your hand up?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Good evening. Do you
No, it's Commissioner. That's Commissioner Byers.
Thank you, Mr.
Well, then why are we introducing them?
Beck, how are you? Well, Chair and members of the board.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I want to thank, first of all, I want to thank you, each one of those persons for the community to come and have some great speech up there. Chair, I am very believable and I love the project. I think it's beautiful. But I also like to say that I believe that's the young lady, Joanna, who brings something up there, say this is going to be a beneficiary for people from New York. I have no problem for people to New York to come into Newark, but I know for a fact, 100% that the people who's going to visit, have the benefit is people from New York coming to Newark. Fine. But I also like to say that I don't know if you've heard this word that what you do in Vegas stays in Vegas. I want the same thing that happens in Newark. Okay. For the fact that we do need a resident to stay in Newark and those projects to bring it up for more local residents and not for those projects from out of the state. Thank you. And with that, Chair, And members of the board, I'd like for us to take a consideration and looking deep to see what we can bring out tonight for, especially for those residents. I'm not against the resident, to be honest with you, but I also believe that this is the Newark. And I think the project is also beautiful. So I'll leave it up to my board and let's take a consideration on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Perez, you'd like to surmise?
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for your attention this evening on this application. Thank you to everyone who came out this evening. It was a great turnout from the community. We had 2 meetings with over 90 participants in attendance at both meetings. That notices were sent regular mail, posted on websites by the councilman's office as well, who were very well attended. And so in addition to that, the city itself had meetings between the planning and the council. It was council, planning, council on the changes and the redevelopment plan and essentially focusing around this project. So there has been for well over a year, I think, some back and forth. Some of the outcomes of this community meeting included the removal of a pedestrian plaza, included the addition of some landscaping, included some contributions to perhaps the trees across the street at the park or improvements there, and the retail space along Market to have a hospital use. And we have reached out to University Hospital. I'll say that for the record. So there has been input from the community. There were 2 very well attended, 2 to 3, I forgot how long we were there, sessions at the Portuguese Club where we attended. There is a commitment on this project to IZO. There are local jobs for Norkers because this project will require us to participate in the local affirmative action hiring. That will be something that they participate in. The applicant will provide security that's consistent with the ordinance. We are obligated to do that, and he wants to do that. It only benefits not only the residents, his investment, but the community. And as you heard from the IBID president, he has demonstrated, the applicant here has demonstrated an effort already to be a good steward in the community and a good neighbor. We've talked about landscaping. We indicated that there is going to be some landscaping and additional landscaping and planters that is not being counted towards our number. We will certainly do everything possible to plant as many trees, but there is an issue. There is a hardship that was provided in testimony with respect from both Mr. Scott and Mr. McDonough. We have to make sure that the trees that are planted do not block lines of sight for traffic. Safety is the concern here to make sure that folks that are driving down these streets can see what's happening. And so I say that to say, the applicant here has demonstrated certainly a willingness to work and satisfy the requirements here. There is no displacement of residents. This is absolutely brand new housing stock on existing vacant land that has been utilized in the past as a parking lot. That is something that the city did not want to do anymore. Surface lots are not permitted. Newarkers will get the first chance here for the affordable units. That is written in your ordinance. We will comply with that. And so I think there are issues with respect to statements being made on policy, and I want to make sure the board is clear in the jurisdiction here. The application before you is seeking preliminary and final site plan approval for a project that complies with your redevelopment area. It complies with your IZO. We are not here on an issue of height. We are not here on an issue of density. And the city provides, the city ordinances and the state statute provide this board the power and the authority to grant variances and waivers. Here, there are no variances that were identified in your zoning determination that is signed by your zoning officer on December 2nd, 2024. A permitted use cannot be denied based on these policy issues. One of them that was raised today is the rents. Another was with respect to the traffic. Parking is being provided here with 150 spaces free to the city. It is not required, and they are doing that as well. I'd like to say that the board is tasked this evening with a job of administrating the redevelopment plan and verifying the accuracy of the submissions. We submit that the testimony provided by the project engineer, the architect, and the planner further serves to supplement the application and the plans that were submitted and satisfy the criteria for approval. As such, we ask you to give approval subject to the conditions we've stated tonight on that record. Again, this project will provide a renovation of a vacant eyesore. It will create density. New residents will provide additional customers for existing businesses in the area. New housing stock. Create affordable housing. We're talking 283 units that have never existed that will be provided. Increase the tax revenue. We will upgrade the water and sewer services. We will provide the 150 parking spaces for the public. We will provide contracts for local businesses and jobs for Newark residents. This project will be discussing community benefits agreement with the city. And I'd like to just reiterate, the planning board's authority is limited to determining whether the development conforms with the zoning and the provisions of the site plan ordinance and the redevelopment plan. And here the record is clear. The project conforms to that redevelopment plan and the amendments. Lastly, I'd like to just put on the record that this project had received letters of support from the city, not only from the mayor, from the deputy mayor of economic and housing development. We also received a resolution of support from the Newark Municipal Council, basically stating that the development of quality multifamily property promotes the advancement of greater welfare of existing residents in the surrounding neighborhood of the city of Newark. The resolution and the letters of support note that this type of project meets the existing housing need. And so with that, I'd like to note for the record that we are requesting the waivers. Our notice did stipulate any and all other waivers and variances that the board might identify, and we relied on the city's zoning determination and the reports herewith with respect to the relief that we are seeking, and we respectfully submit that this project warrants the support of the city. It absolutely demonstrates a need to take a property that's been on a use that's not permitted and put it to a great use to provide quality new housing that includes affordable housing and a plethora of community benefits. So with that, I submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Board, any questions or comments?
Chair, I do have a question.
Yeah, Co-Chair, which?
Thank you so much, Chair. Ms. Carilla Perez, can you speak a little bit with regards to the green space in the other community areas? Because I've heard two separate things. First, I heard that the common areas maybe at the roof were exclusively for the residents, but then I heard that all of the spaces might be accessible to the community. Can you clarify that piece?
Sure. The amenity space in the building and the space identified there is only for the residents. There is a provision in the redevelopment plan that calls, Commissioner Wisher, I will say the space that you saw as it relates to the amenity space and the green space in the building and the roof is solely amenity space for the residents. There is a provision in the redevelopment law, in the redevelopment plan that also requires there to be a requirement for open space. Let me see. I apologize, I'm pulling it up. It is, if you bear with me 1 second, I apologize. Okay, it is publicly accessible open space. And what's required is a minimum of 10% of the development tract. And in lieu of, so it says that encompasses lots 1 and 80 shall be developed with publicly accessible open space, or a contribution in lieu of providing publicly accessible open space shall be provided for dedicated purposes related to the development. And so here we have proposed 6%. And so your ordinance, the redevelopment plan says you can supply the 10 or you can make a contribution. Here we're providing 6%, and for the balance and the remainder, it's just the 4%. So that's why I think there are two different distinguished, issues here. The green space in our building is for the resident amenity, but there's this other requirement that we do participate and contribute to some, just not the entirety of what's required. But again, the plan allows for the contribution, and this board has the authority to grant that approval.
So let me know, how do you contribute open space?
So I'm going to defer to Mr. Barry if you can talk about this contribution for a publicly accessible open space and how it's noted in the variance. I mean, in the redevelopment plan.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Witcher, John Barry still under oath. The redevelopment plan amendment calls for a monetary contribution to the city in the event that all of the open space that's required is not provided on site. A calculation of the amount of space required, so 10% of the lot, less the amount of open space actually provided, in this case 6%. I don't know the exact square footage numbers offhand. So whatever the remaining amount is, the difference between the required and the provided would get multiplied by a factor, and a contribution in that amount would be required to be made to the city as a condition of the board's approval. The applicant would be unable to move forward through the resolution compliance process, so they would not be able to get any building permits, et cetera, until that contribution is made, in addition to satisfying all the other outstanding engineering comments and so forth. But that would certainly be a requirement of any board action and not something that would be waived.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for that explanation. That was a very good question, Co-Chair. One of the unique things about this particular project is there's a park directly across the street. There's a Riverfront Park is right there. So that's also beneficial, in my opinion. That not many other developments have a park right across the street.
And we will
Especially when the winds are blowing in the right direction.
And I apologize, but just to be clear, we are targeting the park across the street to provide additional, landscaping and trees. So I just want to note that for the record as well. That's a community benefit.
Thank you. I think it's a great project. Commissioners, any other questions or comments?
Just one question, Jennifer, real quick. The community benefit agreement, it hasn't been finalized, right? There hasn't been agreed upon, correct? It's just
correct. That is not, and there will be separate sessions that are not within the purview of this board, within council's board purview, where that will be entertained. Yes.
Okay, I was just wondering where it was in the process. Thank you.
Oh no, this is step one where we're at right now. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Chair. Can I please?
Commissioner Byers.
Yeah, Mr. Carrillo, with all my respect, for the 283 unit you have it for affordable house, so they gonna have it like a community room separately besides the downstairs for this project?
No, the intention of the ordinance is that you're all neighbors. We're not distinguishing affordable from market. They get, the building, they live in it like everyone else. So the only thing different is that they pay the affordable rents. So there's no spaces just for the affordable folks. It's for everyone. They get the whole benefit of the project.
So you have a whole community room for everybody?
Yes, there's tons of amenity spaces.
Thank you. Thank you. That make a community together. That's good.
Yeah.
Chair.
Commissioner James.
Council, I know you mentioned, you're doing this in phases. Do you expect to come back at all to request any additional support and so forth? I know you're seeking final approval and so forth, but.
No, I think the intent, it's mentioned in phases by virtue of the construction, just because of the way the buildings are for financing. So we do not expect to come back, but I can never say never.
No, I understand. And I don't want to put you in a pigeonhole, but obviously, as you know, the Aspire program, which is an EDA program, is competitive and so forth. What happens if you don't get financing and so forth? What's the next steps? And, you know, to one of the, I think, commentators asking about, having to ask for another extension. And I know that's kind of out of your hands, but what happens if you don't get financing for whatever reasons?
So this is, we're going to make an application through Aspire, transformative project. This project, we will then have to assess candidly. I mean, the developer has a commitment to do this project. And so unfortunately, the goal is to get this approval. We have received the city support already by resolution and then apply and see. The goal is to get in before, candidly, the federal government changes financing, right? And so we want to avoid the gold visa issue, the stopping of financing issues. And so we're trying to make sure that this gets built, because candidly, the only way affordable housing gets built is if market rate housing gets built. And so, our goal is to get that funding before any laws change that prohibit the opportunity for anyone to develop housing or affordable housing in New Jersey.
Thank you. I just have a question for Mr. Barry, Chair, real quick.
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner James.
And Mr. Barry, I know this isn't a developer's issue, but what is the impact on the local schools? Obviously, you're aware that, the Ironbound is by all means the most overcrowded, part of our city and so forth. I know other municipalities have had MOUs and, almost forced developers to build like an annex to include whether preschools, high performing charter schools, et cetera, to help offset the local burden on the school system. Has that ever come up on the city side at all, or like what's the, because you're adding almost a mini neighborhood and in the most dense area of our city. So I'm sure there had to be some discussions regarding the impact on the local schools.
Commissioner, if I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Barry, but I don't know whether that's a subject that can be addressed. We could do it off. I mean, it's a conversation, but I don't know where.
Yeah, that's why I posed it to the consultant and not to the developer, and the client itself.
Yeah, I'll provide a brief answer, Commissioner James, because I'm not able to provide a more in-depth one. I haven't been involved in any of the conversations about a community benefits agreement. I mean, I think that's still ongoing, and that would certainly be an avenue to consider, whether it's an impact fee or some other consideration related to whether it's a particular grade of school or preschool kind of thing, whatever the case may be. So I'm not involved in those conversations, unfortunately. So I would just say that that's an avenue that other policymakers are involved with, and that would probably be the right venue for that conversation.
Right. More of a city council, I guess, discussion.
And it's certainly a valid consideration, and obviously development of this scale has impacts both positive and negative, and in terms of balancing everything out, we certainly feel that as a permitted use and bring substantial affordability to the neighborhood, it's got a lot going for it on the positive side. Yeah, no, totally. And the only reason I raised it, because I know several applications that have come before our board, specifically in the Ironbound, that is usually the number one issue, especially amongst parents regarding, overcrowdedness in schools and so forth. So that was essentially why I definitely wanted to see what the city was doing in terms of trying to address that issue. So it wasn't really directed towards you, council. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. Board, any other questions or comments? Hearing none. In that case, I need a motion.
Chair, so move.
Second it.
Moved by Commissioner James, second by Commissioner Byers. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Purdy,
Yes.
Commissioner Byers,
Yes.
Commissioner Timmons,
Yes.
Commissioner De Silva,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott Roundtree, Commissioner Scott Roundtree,
Absent.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Austin,
Yes.
Co-Chair Witcher,
Yes.
Chair Richardson.
Yes, your application's been approved. Good luck.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Have a good night,
Have a
everyone.
good night.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, do we have any other business?
I think we have one resolution, Dan, but if you want to hold off.
Madam Secretary, we have one, I guess we might as well incorporate it in tonight's agenda. Is CPB 22-100 105-161 Hyatt Avenue. It's an extension. And all those commissioners that voted affirmatively can memorialize same. So that's it.
Thanks, sir. Next meeting is on the 10th.
Monday.
Monday, yeah, it's right.
Mr. Peck.
So have a good night. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you on Monday.
Wait, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Peck.
Take care.
Recording
Mr. Peck.
stopped.
Mr. Peck, I solemnly swear for the last 10 years, I solemnly swear I've been truth. For the last 10 years I've been a commissioner, I solemnly swear that all I say is going to be truth.